ahead, Mitchell. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting to order for the Fort Bragg Unified School District. We have a short organizational meeting before we move on. So we would first like to do our oath of office with our two new board members. And I believe Becky's going to take care of that. Do you want them?
Okay,
Do you want to use one of these?
yeah, I'll do that. So, Mary Macala, would you please come to the front? Would you please raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Mary Jean Macala,
I, Mary Jean Macala,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter. Sorry.
Welcome to the board of Fort Bragg Unified.
Sign in?
Yes.
Yes.
You get to sign all that good stuff. And Mr. Scott Schneider, would you please come to the front? And just for our audience, it's a little messy because we're going to have a performance here in just a minute. So, Mr. Schneider, would you please raise your right hand? I, Scott Schneider,
I, Scott Schneider,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Welcome to the board of Fort Bragg Unified. So we'd like to welcome our two new board members, Mary Macala and Scott Schneider.
So thank you very much for joining us. I did run into a couple people that that talked about watching the meetings live. They said it's been going great. Thank you, gentlemen. But we just need to make sure that we're speaking into the mics, because then it gets
2 inches,
lost.
Mitchell. We're listening. 2 inches.
Just remember that tonight, please. Okay, so we're moving on to the election of officers. The first is election of president.
I nominate Kathy Babcock.
And I would second that. You're stuck. Done.
Okay, thank you. Do I have to do anything else?
I think you have to call for a vote. Okay, call a roll? I think we call a roll.
I think so.
Yes, we call a roll.
Yes.
This is what happens when you have a board member of 18 years no longer be here. We're all looking at each other. So what do we do? Yes,
What did we do
Anna,
a year
please-
ago?
Anna, please call the roll.
Okay, Trustee Macala,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Babcock.
Yes, thank you. Oh, good thing I know where Jennifer's at. Okay, And then our election of our vice president.
I'd like to nominate Diana Paoli for the position of Vice President.
I second.
Okay, any discussion?
Trustee Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
And Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and our last position to fill is our parliamentarian. Is there any, I think that one,
We generally give that to one of the newer members. It's not much. I mean, it's really, it's a little booklet that kind of has the board rules and what we do, and kind of like our own in-house Robert's Rule of Order. I don't even know, I think Sydney might even still have that booklet unless she turned it back in.
No, I
did
have
you,
it.
or did you get it?
But I nominate Mary Makala.
Diana wants to get rid of the book, apparently.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Makala?
Yes.
Two M's.
And Jennifer, if you're watching and we're doing something wrong, we apologize.
Okay.
We have a picture of them. You all stand here, there's something. Because there might be some people.
That don't know who the five of us are now? Sure.
Yeah, we'll do it quick. We'll do it quick. Sorry, those of you in the audience.
Do it right here.
One quick one. Mr. Mattson, Mr. Schneider, would you join in really quickly?
Really quickly, just really quickly. Come on. This is not, my forte, but if you do it for the website. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Connie.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next organizational item is the approval of signatures and the persons who are authorized to sign on the board's name. So I think Becky's started that? Okay. So there's just signatures. And then our 2.4 is consider approval of statement of facts.
So before we begin, I think, Kathy, you and Diana are supposed to switch places.
Okay.
Because isn't the vice president supposed to sit to the left of the president?
That's where I went last.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Sorry.
I'm sorry, do we need to read this?
What are you talking about?
2.4.
Oh, consider approval of statement of facts?
This is the statement of facts sheet. It's,
Oh, there's
No,
nothing.
it's
No.
a Secretary of State
right.
fill-in form, so
Okay.
it's
Then
awkward
I sign it,
reading.
it's and then return it to them. State of California.
Okay, sorry. I'm just worried about getting other things taken that I didn't open up my folder. And now I need to make sure. So I think we're fine, we don't need to read anything. So we just need to approve it?
Yes.
So can I have a motion to approve the statement of facts as presented in the board packet?
I move that we approve the statement of facts.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and Student Rep Judah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and we are on to our annual calendar, 2.5, and I believe we have a couple items that we would like to discuss.
So 2.5 is the regular meeting dates. So there are a few that are not the second Thursday of the month. In April, that is because of spring break. And in October, it's because of our October break. I'd like to propose, with the permission of the board, that our March 14th meeting be moved to March 7th. And the reason for that is we have many deadlines that are due on March 15th that require the board's approval, and that's cutting it just a little too close for me. So I've already discussed it with Wendy because her deadline is a little bit more pressing than mine, but I'd like to move that we take the March 14th regular meeting date and make it March 7th. And if we do that now, we can make it a regular meeting before the calendar is approved. The other thing that we should probably discuss is looking at when you want some special meetings while you're all here with your calendars, so we could publish those.
That's on
Is that the next one? Oh, sorry. Okay, we'll just scratch that for a
So
second.
then there was also mention about January.
So January 10th is the second Thursday. The tricky part about that is that we begin school on January 7th. So the likelihood of lots of things to discuss between now and January 10th is not as high. However, we could move the SARC reports and some other business items to the 10th. I don't know if the principals are going to be quite ready for their SARCs on the 10th. That'll be a little, I think they could be, but I would need to let them know now. We could move it to the 17th, just move it down one, so it's the second Thursday of when we are back, like we do with spring break. It's your decision. So those are the two times.
17th would work well, better than the 10th.
Okay,
Right.
Fine
It
for
actually
me.
is better for me also.
okay.
Plus it gives the 30 days for the sunshine letters.
And that's the other thing. So we have FBDTA and CSEA, well, we have the sunshine letters for FBDTA, so we need 30 days for sunshining before you can approve it, and the 17th will allow us to do that too.
Okay, so we, and was everybody okay with the March 7th date?
Yes.
And you might consider making the meeting earlier.
Okay. We're all getting reminded of all the little business things that we do in this meeting. So we do this meeting once a year. Every December, this is the meeting that we hold, that we set our dates and we approve our agenda. Do we want closed session to go return to 5 o'clock?
It's easier for me to remember.
Is everyone
You
good
make
with
it at
that?
5?
Okay,
for
so
me.
let's have closed session, return to 5 PM. Let's move the January 10th meeting to January 17th. Let's move the March 14th meeting to March 7th. And the rest of the dates, I believe, are fine.
You want the regular meeting to stay at 6?
The regular meeting is at 6, or do you want the regular meeting to go to 5:30?
I think we need an hour for closed session. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think consistency for the public's benefit too, that it would take a year and a half for the general public to get wrapped around
Okay,
moving
so
the
we'll
general.
leave it all at 6 o'clock.
I mean, if, do you guys think there's gonna be less
Theoretically.
to do? I mean, are you thinking we could get done? I just know for the last 6 or 8 months, we've been pretty tight on 45 minutes.
Mhm.
But, I mean, with,
I hope we have excess time, but we
I mean,
haven't.
it does get us home and families home early for bed. I mean, if they could get home for bedtime, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we should just discount it if we think we only need a half an hour for closed.
I say for right now, let's get through this,
Another year.
time. Let's go through
Okay.
one more calendar year with 5 o'clock, and we'll see if things simmer down a little bit. And if they do, then we can look at changing it for the future.
So closed session starts at 5, regular meeting starts at 6. Okay. So that is an action,
That's an action item.
yeah. Okay, so when we make the motion, we just need to make sure we include those 2 changes in the time to 5, which I don't think that was actually an action item, or that wasn't officially changed anywhere, but.
So are we ready to I'd like to make a motion to approve the schedule of meetings for January 2019 through December 2019 with the correction or change of January 17th being the regular meeting and March the 7th, closed session at 5 PM, and each meeting at 6, regular meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Okay, got that in, okay. And any discussion?
Okay. Trustee Makela? President Babcock?
Yes.
Trustee Paoli?
Yes.
Trustee Mattson?
Yes.
Trustee Schneider?
Yes.
And Student Rep Judah?
Yes.
Okay, so we are now on 2.6, discussion and assignment of ancillary duties and appointments. So there, I know we have the potential specials and agenda setting in the packet, and I believe we also need to reassign or assign our school sites. And then also, if we do want to change the audit committee, I believe those were other, two other things we said.
And the finance committee?
I thought we kind of got rid of, didn't we decide everybody wanted to be part of that and to not make a, that was my memory. Does anybody?
For the
Do we
budget?
want to keep the budget, yeah. Do we want to have 2 people in case we go back to that?
I would suggest at this point that we hold some budget workshops and keep it out of committee, but allow all of you to be there so that
Right.
we can have a discussion. It's going to be a little tenuous, so I think it's important for us to be able to have as much time together as possible, because the only times you get to talk are when there's a meeting. So I would encourage us at this point for the budget to keep, to have budget workshops where it's full board, and whoever can come, great, but it's your opportunity to have the discussion.
Okay, so we'll leave that one off. So then,
I'm fine staying on the audit committee, that's.
okay.
That was you and I, wasn't it, Diana?
Right, and I'm happy to stay also.
So what are the committees?
It was, we just have one, that was the audit committee, and so that person goes over the audit findings, usually with a phone conference. They call in and talk to the auditor. And if we do or don't change audit companies, that they meet with Wendy to go over that. But I think that's all in my tenure that we've done with that committee. Not a huge time commitment. So, did you guys have any want to jump on that or leave it with the
How many
current committee?
generally are on?
It's, we can only do 2 because of the Brown
Oh,
Act.
right, 'cause of the one.
Yeah.
No, I'm happy if you guys are willing to continue.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Me too.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So the only thing on this document that we would need to take note of is that the dates for agenda setting will be modified for January, modified for March.
There's a conflict with the special meeting and the regular meeting now in March, too.
Yep.
So we could, if we could have March 7th, well, March 7th is the regular meeting now. We could look at a special meeting, March 17th, not 17th, I'm sorry, add 21st.
Is that just gonna be benchmark? Since we were already meeting. Although I'm not here the 21st.
Okay. You gotta buy. Or we could hold
We
off on
just-
that.
Oh, we can't just flip them? 7th and 14th?
We can do that. We can have March 14th be the special meeting. Is everybody good with that?
March 14th special?
Did you say that was, I'm sorry, I don't have both documents open. Was that,
Yeah.
that's the benchmarks is supposed to?
Yes.
Okay, so
Right.
we don't need any time for what happens at the regular to be ready for a week later. That's all I was asking.
Yeah,
So
no, it'll be fine.
the 14th is fine for,
And the specials just need 24 hours notice, so they really could, this is just a kind of a,
This is really for
Proposal.
coordination of all of our calendars, because the minute we all start running, we already know, I mean, my February calendar and my January calendar are almost full, to be quite honest with you. So we just need to get these things in as soon as possible.
okay.
Okay, so special on the 14th, regular on the 7th,
Yes.
Yes.
March. Okay.
And so February 7th, we're looking at a special meeting for the budget.
Yes.
Okay.
And this is the time for all of you to say, this is not a good date for me, this is a good date for me. So just to be specific, in January, we're looking at January 24th being a special board meeting for SARCs and benchmarks. We're looking at a special meeting in February 7th, to have a budget workshop. We're looking at a special meeting on March 14th for benchmarks again. We're looking at a special meeting in May 16th for the budget, and May 23rd for an LCAP preview and for the school site plans. And then in June, having a special meeting on the 20th for the budget, because at that point we should know what's going on at that point.
So the 7th is a potential MIG training if we.
The 7th of what?
February. So that
Okay.
was one that a few of us may not be able to attend.
Yeah, and I'll be out of town that day,
On the 7th?
on the 7th.
Okay, is there another time in February that might be better?
I'm out that week.
Okay,
We traditionally try to keep them on Thursdays,
Mhm.
so if we want to look at the 21st is break, and then we
28th.
have the 28th.
I don't know if that's too late.
so the other thing we can look at is, I'm looking at all these benchmark dates. I'm wondering if we could take the March 7th benchmark date and make that budget and benchmark.
14th, you mean?
I'm sorry, the 14th,
Yeah,
yes,
no,
just
21.
combine them.
I'm confused.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
So benchmark and SARCs, okay, go down to the 14th.
So on March 14th,
Mhm.
what we can
budget is-
do-
That one stays, and these two combine.
Okay, gotcha.
So budget and benchmark are together?
on March 14th, and then it just eliminate the extra meeting in February completely.
Okay, sounds good.
Would that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to make them special?
Oh, they're special. And then I think the other ones can go. The special meeting in August, on August 22nd, I don't know if I'm going to be available for that or not. It all depends where my son goes to college. Um,
Well, should we move it a week late?
Okay, I'd like to propose that we just eliminate that August 22nd meeting. It's kind of right at the beginning of the school year. We won't, I mean, we'll know, but at that point, the die is cast.
September 15th is on it, actually,
Okay,
so that would be a time to talk about.
okay. Why don't we hold off on that, and when we get closer to August, look at our calendars, because a special board meeting only requires 24-hour notice. The October board meeting for budget, and then November for benchmarks. And then we're back to December again.
So we've eliminated the February special meeting
Yes,
and moved it to the 14th
with,
of March?
yes, and we've eliminated the August special meeting.
Okay. Everything else stays the same?
Yes,
Okay.
with your approval, of course.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
should I move to approve the?
Are you going to modify, Anna, are you
Well,
gonna
does this have to be an action item, since we're adding meetings, or no? Because they're special?
But you do need to assign school sites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you gonna modify the agenda setting dates then too?
Yes, I will.
And send us to us so we can calendar all that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next thing is the school sites. So we have one for each of us.
Do you mind going into a little more detail as to what
What that is?
means? Yeah.
Thank you for asking, sorry. So each one of us is assigned responsible, lucky to go there, for the school site, and we try to attend their activities and/or meetings. So, for example, I'm at the middle school, and I try to go to the Parents Club and Site Council, which I have not been that successful at so far this year. But that, and then if you can go to any activities, and, you know, if, when I was at Noyo, I went and met with Connie, and she gave me a tour, and I got to see the site and looking at some of the things that they were doing. So it's kind of just your spot that you go check out in with, and,
Nothing mandatory, just what you can.
no, yeah.
And it doesn't prohibit us from going to other
Nope.
sites and checking that. Okay.
And we'll talk about protocols and things on how we do that at the retreat in January.
Great.
So we try not to surprise anybody.
And is that a part of this schedule?
Nope.
Okay.
That's at the end of the agenda under future.
Got it.
And so
um,
you're still able to go, like, work in the classroom, like I work in Lexi's?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it doesn't prohibit you from doing anything else.
Okay.
I still go to Dana Gray. Obviously, my son's there.
Yeah.
You know, we go when we can go to all the school sites, but that's kind of the one we really take an interest in. So,
If nobody has any objections, I'd love to keep the high school for another year, but if somebody else wants it, I don't wanna be.
Why don't we have
Being
Scott and
hungry.
Mary, since you're both new, where do you want to be?
I know everybody, so I'll go wherever you want me to go.
Pull it out of a hat.
Scott, do you have a preference?
I was gonna say the high school, but I don't wanna take it away from.
Well,
Jenny.
I got it last year. I've kind of gotten pretty much carte blanche all the time I've been on here, so. And like you say, it doesn't prohibit you from going anywhere you wanna go, so. You only have, I mean, I have a daughter in high school, but you have two, right?
I have two.
So I'd be okay going somewhere else too.
You sure?
It's not a huge deal. I'll be up there anyway, so doing what I was doing before, which wasn't much.
okay, so we'll put Scott at the high school. Mary, do you want to?
Sure.
Pick second?
I'll take last. Whatever's left, I'll take, because I'm happy with all of them.
You disappoint. You're the president.
No, we're not going to run that kind of show around here. Sorry. Where, you were at the Dana Gray?
No,
You were
I
at
started
Redwood?
at Dana Gray, alt ed.
Okay.
Um,
And I've had middle school and alt ed as well.
You guys still have kids in Dana Gray in middle school, right?
Diana's at middle school and high school. I'm at Dana Gray.
Well,
And
then I'll take all 10, and you guys can divvy up the rest. How's that?
okay.
Jerry. I haven't been to,
Well, how about I'll stay, or I'll go back to Dana Gray. No, not back. I haven't been there. Then that can put you at
Redwood or middle
Redwood,
school.
Sure.
so that where Lexi is, and then you okay?
Yes.
At middle school. Okay.
Wow, that worked out like so well.
Okay. So I have Mary at Redwood, myself at Dana Gray, Diane at middle school, Scott at the high school, and Jerry at alt ed. Okay. All right. Okay, I think that's everything. Yes. Okay. All right.
Meeting
So.
adjourned.
That
meeting.
Moving on to public participation on non-agenda items. So if there's anyone that would like to speak to us this evening on items that are not on the agenda, now would be the perfect time.
Do we need to make a motion for that? No.
Okay, seeing no one, we will move on to the approval of tonight's agenda. Does anybody have anything that needs to be moved or tabled?
Any estimate on where we're gonna be before we have to go into close? This could get pretty late. Do we wanna set a time that we wanna end the regular meeting if we're gonna be spending significant time in closed session?
I think we're going to be able to get through the meeting just fine.
So I think we'll be
Um,
done by 9 or so.
I think so.
Okay, that's fine. We don't need to then.
Okay. All right, can I have,
I move to approve the agenda.
I
Second.
all right, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye, yes.
Aye. Thank you. All right, and Judah has made arrangements for our patriotic exercise this evening.
Yes. So I have actually brought a band that is comprised of Fort Bragg High School students. So their name is Save Bandit. And if you guys want to come up here, I can introduce you. So we have, if you want to raise your hand, we have Audrey Ferguson on keyboard.
Okay, so you know, I'm going to ask you to come in the middle because the camera can't see you. So can you just wave, Audrey, and then you can go to the keyboard?
So this is Audrey Ferguson on keyboard. We have Maria Ramos, who's a vocalist. We have Jake Bell, who's on guitar, and Isaac Estrella on saxophone.
You guys can put the
So
chairs
Maria,
back.
there's a mic right on that chair for you, and you can move the chairs here anywhere they need to be.
And tonight they will be performing a rendition of This Land Is Your Land, which I thought was a good song, which kind of speaks about unity, which is important.
do whatever you need to do, guys. If you can be up here in the middle, that'd be great. Do you want to put that on a chair, Audrey? Do you want to set it on that gray chair?
This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that rhythm highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, and I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts, and all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling, and the wind feels waking, and the clouds rolling. The voice was chanting as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling, and the wind feels waking, and the dust clouds rolling. The voice come chanting as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me.
Very nice. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again for coming.
Good job, guys. Thank you. That was great.
Very nice.
So item number 6 is acknowledgements. So I believe Becky will tell us about our 2 acknowledgements this evening.
We are incredibly fortunate to have the James G. Cummings Foundation donate so much to our schools each year. And once again, the James G. Cummings Foundation has donated $4,500 to the alternative ed site. This is how they do a lot of little the extra things that they do for our students. So the James G. Cummings Foundation is once again coming to our rescue and really giving Alt Ed a little bit extra. So thank you to them. Next, we have acknowledgments about Erin Brazil. Erin Brazil is our TLC teacher. TLC is our Transition Learning Center for our young people ages 18 to 22. And she was nominated, and I'll read the letter. Each year, the State Council on Developmental Disabilities calls for nomination for the David A. Isom Excellence and Service Award, which is presented to individuals who provide exceptional services to persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities in Del Norte, Humboldt, Lake, and Mendocino counties. These nominations are made by the Redwood Coast Regional Center clients and families. So Ms. Brazil was nominated this year, which is a prestigious honor, so we want to congratulate her for her nomination.
Okay. And I just realized that TLC is not on our site list, so in January when we have our meeting, maybe if we can just plan that we
It's actually part of the high school.
Okay, so it's been under that umbrella.
Mhm.
Okay,
Thanks for
But-
letting me know.
maybe we can do a walkthrough though sometime that we've
be
always
great.
been saying we're gonna do that. Okay, thank you very much. And so we have communication. Did any board members receive any communication in the last 20 minutes for you?
Well, I think this afternoon, I think we all received, well, maybe not everyone, Meet the Candidate. They're already getting us ready for our spring calendar, March 15, at the Casper Community at 5 o'clock. And that's, if anyone, I guess it's before another election, but they're already planning for that, March 15. League of Women Voters has a
For the
meet
June.
and greet.
The meet and
Ballot.
greet that they do every year.
So that's the only email I have received.
Okay. And I did want to share, we received a letter from MCOE, and I just think, I know that we've talked about it before, and I won't read the whole letter, but it's regarding our 18-19 board approval of our budget and the LCAP. And I just want to, because we know that it's going to be an issue for us for several years, I just wanted to read the part about their warning, I guess you could say, about what we need to keep in mind as we move forward. So this, it says, while the projections indicated that the mandated 3% will be met in all 3 years of the multi-year projection, we note that should planned reductions fall short, the district will need to consider alternative steps in order to maintain its fiscal health. So the fiscal challenges ahead for school districts are many, and it is vital that districts continue to exercise sound judgment in their implementation and planning of budgets and multi-year projections. Fiscal stability will allow districts to maintain quality educational programs, which in turn will help students achieve lifelong educational success. So as always, I wanted to point this out for our business office. As always, we commend your business office staff for the comprehensive budget presentation and cooperation through our review process. So thank you, Wendy, and your staff for that. But I just want to, we know this, but we just have, that there's other people looking at it too. So we just have to make sure that we make our district and the board happy, as well as the people that look at it too, so.
And was this just sent to our district or all districts in the county?
They all get, they're approving what we submitted, and I skipped that part because I didn't want to, but the part about, they just keep remembering that we are reminding us that we,
Just so
We're
for our newer
barely
members,
showing a positive balance third year out.
Mhm.
when, anytime we issue a financial report, the county, looks it over pretty thoroughly and reviews it and then comments on it as well. So we're not living in a vacuum. There's oversight beyond just our inside walls.
so everybody gets a letter. What's in the letter is a little different.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
okay, that's all I received. Anything else? No? Okay, so we'll move on to public participation on agenda items. You, again, can speak now, or you may, now and or when the item comes up on the agenda. So do we have anybody here that would like to speak to us at this time? Okay.
So Linda, you might need to bend that mic down just so that it's,
2 inches away from my
that's right.
face.
Those are the rules.
Okay. So my name is Linda Stevens. I have worked for the Fort Bragg Unified School District as a secretary at Redwood, and I'm the past president for our union chapter that represents the classified staff. I've been coming to board meetings now for approximately 10 years, and for the most part, approve of the way things have been done. The one item I would like to address tonight is board member elections. We are here tonight to install two new board members, congratulations, who appear to have been appointed rather than elected. Who makes the decision to appoint new board members? How are they discovered? I knew that there were 2 or 3 positions that were going to be open, but never really understood the total number or who exactly was stepping down or when their last day was. Granted, there are a few meetings that I have missed, but is this published somewhere that I haven't seen? I realize that not holding actual elections saves the district money, but I was hoping for more board transparency. I also realize that you can't answer these questions directly, but it is my hope that you will take these questions into consideration for future board actions. On a second subject, I would like to talk about chronic absenteeism, and we're going to discuss that later, but Redwood's rate has gone down considerably, and I believe this is due to the articles in the newspaper, along with all the memos that are being sent home. It has called considerable attention to our absenteeism, and I think it would be a good idea to do a second round of articles and memos, maybe in January, to remind everybody, because I can see it starting to spike again. And that's it. Thank you for all you do for the community and our children, and welcome aboard.
Thank you, Linda.
So I believe you can, because it's just facts, you can address her first comment.
Okay.
So do you
So
want?
Linda, Jennifer Owen actually at a public board meeting announced that she would not be running for reelection. And at that point, it was and I wasn't at that meeting, because I remember that it was discussed and I viewed it online. But Jennifer had announced in a public board meeting that she was not going to run. And then at that point, because Diana was appointed when Cynthia Auto resigned. So Diana's seat was forced into the election. So we had 4 board seats open, and there was a brief discussion about that in an open meeting. And I believe there was a newspaper article that talked about who was running and how many seats were open. There was 1 2-year seat open, and there were 3 4-year seats open. So Diana ran for a 4-year seat, which is why she couldn't put incumbent on any of the election materials. And then Mary ran for the 2-year seat, and Scott and Jerry ran for the other open 4-year seats. Every 2 years now, we have a board election. So every even year, we have a board election. In 2020, there will be 2 seats open, and it will be Kathy's seat and Mary's seat. And so,
And because there were the exact number of people for the number of open seats, we're not required to actually have an election. Nobody filed beyond the number of seats there were. So technically, it was an election without an election because they did file paperwork. So they weren't actually sort of a point, but kind of by default became, if only that many people run, then they get the job.
Okay.
And all of this election is run by the county, so we're going by their rules.
Yeah. I just think that,
come up to the mic.
I know. I was just hoping maybe there would be more interest than, 3 people running for 3 seats or something like that.
2 years, Linda.
So,
It's your chance.
so anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
And Linda, just so you know, we had only 3 people running for 4 seats
Yeah.
for quite a while. So it was the last day. It was the last day that a board member had submitted an application. So I agree. I was hoping there would be more interest too. So
All right.
thank you.
And I think it's very indicative to the number of people in the room, because when I ran, the room was full, and we kind of had an election. There were 3 names on the ticket, but you know.
I still have your sign in my garage.
Well, we'll see what 2 years holds.
Don't throw it away.
I didn't put the year on it specifically for that, but thank you very much for those comments, and maybe we can do a little bit better getting the word out in 2 years when it comes around again. Okay, and we'll talk about absenteeism in a little while. Thank you, Linda.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to reports. So we have 9.1, Mary and Scott. This is where each one of us can give a brief report on any activities they've done, gone to, trainings they've done, any kind of things that you just want to share with. It's brief, and that's what we do here. So, does anybody want to start with what they've been up to?
Well, so we don't repeat ourselves, Scott and I and Kathy and Mary and Anna went to a training in this room last Friday night from MCOE. They have a retired school superintendent that did a presentation on different things that it was, I think, extremely useful for new members. A lot of things that Kathy and I probably heard before, but just things that come up with how to run districts and make districts better and so forth. And that's all I have.
Okay.
So I think going back to I attended the Veterans Memorial Band performance on the 11th, and that was lovely to see them back playing together. And I attended the Gender Spectrum presentation, which I thought was thoughtfully presented of understanding and awareness of gender issues. And for me, it provided a lot of reduction of anxiety to maybe say the wrong thing or not know or not have answers. And so it basically just gave awareness and that it's okay to say you don't know, and just so that the students, all students feel welcome, and when they do, they'll thrive. So I really glad I took the time to go to the presentation. I also attended the MECA meeting that same day, which stands for, because I always, sounds like it's Mendocino Education Coordinating Council Association, and was hosted by the Mendocino College, and the participants can include Safe Passage, Mendocino Unified, the Office of Education, Fort Bragg Unified, Mendocino Coast Rec, Mendocino College, and Three Rivers. And so that was a nice roundtable conversation. The high school site meeting I attended, and they spoke about their upcoming WASC meeting or inspection on February 4th, along with their professional development, and they spoke about the gender spectrum presentation, benchmark, student report. So that was a really informative meeting. And the last CSBA conference, which was my first. I chose to not go the first couple of years because I wanted to know where I was headed on the board, and I felt like it was something that could be informative, but also, it's a cost. So I'm happy that I waited, and I thought it was very enriching and enlightening. And I'm going to pull my phone out, not because I'm being rude, but they actually had an awesome app that we downloaded because they were trying to go paperless. And so my schedule's on here, and I'll just read my topics that I attended. And it was helpful because you could pick and choose, and then each class could have attachments to it, which would have paperwork that you could, so if you couldn't make, because there's must be 30 classes that you can go to, within the morning, and you only have, 1 to 3 choices. So the effective funding for your district, prioritizing was a class I attended. Better way to, no, actually it was what was the next class? The CSBA Charter School Task Force, Turning Controversies into Teachable Moments, which was about free speech for employees and students about religion and politics. That was very interesting. There was also a board evaluation class, and the last I attended was the Schools and Courts Critical Legal Issues Affecting Districts in the New Year. And they also, of course, have general sessions with inspirational speakers, a trade show, and it's nice to see other districts and speak to, small districts or large districts and to brainstorm with them during a class. So that was very worth a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But I will utilize the app that's to our advantage to look at, and I think, Mary, you can access that also. And they'll have a webinar also that for the board members, so that if you can't make trainings, that you can actually watch other trainings live, so that's very helpful. And just really quick, I just want to do a shout out to AldEd because they've been posting all the great elective classes that they have. They have art, they've got chiseled gift boxes that are way cool, the lending library boxes that they've created, and then culinary projects. So I think that's wonderful that they're incorporating the more fun in school for kids, and it's life skills. And then I also attended, as a mom, the Weaverville basketball tournament, which is quite a trek. And I just want to shout out to the coaches, because some of them are parents, some of them are teachers, and just community members. They have a love for the sport and time, because it's not just, it's really, I applaud them because it's a huge commitment. And these kids, some of these kids will never go out of the county, on a regular basis. So it's really special for them. But it's 5 days a week for 3 to 4 months. It's a huge commitment, and on top of their day-to-day, it's incredible. And also, I've been following the Paradise Unified District, and I just kind of wanted, not that the state's here, but I think it's wonderful that they're helping. They're an ADA district, and so they're able to have a waiver, so they get their ADA money without attendance, and they've got the red tape eliminated so they can get their schools up and running as quick as possible. I think the elementary school went shortly, maybe a month after the fires, and the high school, they've got a large location that they're probably hoping to have ready to go at the beginning of January. So I'm happy that they're moving forward from the tragedy. And all the school sites going to our district, the school attendance facts, I think that's, like Linda said, is really helping. So on all the district sites, they have the facts on attendance and how important it is for learning. So thank you.
Okay. And I think Mary, you went to the gender
I went to the
thing
gender
too.
spectrum, which was great. He was a really good presenter, so that was great. And I went to the thing Friday with you guys on learning about being a board member, so that was also really informative.
Yeah, I went to both as well, and would it be inappropriate for me to just introduce myself for 30 seconds?
Go
'Cause
ahead.
I'm kind of an unknown face and name to the district. So I lived on the coast for 18 years. I have 3 kids, 2 of them in the high school, 1 at Three Rivers Charter School. I was a charter school board member for a few years. I've sat on several boards, West Company being one. Ran the county promotional group for about 10 years, have been at the city for about 3.5 years. Talked to Becky pretty extensively before I decided to try and join the board, and am excited to work with other board members and staff. I have a great passion for education, and feel that I can bring my expertise and that passion to the board and help jump those hurdles that we're going to have to jump over the next few years. So I look forward to this opportunity, and thank you.
Would you like to introduce yourself, Mary?
I think everybody knows me. So I've worked at every school at some point. So Mary Makala, and gosh, I've lived in Fort Bragg for 34 years, almost 35 years. And I worked here at the high school for 24 years. Prior to that, I was an outreach worker, and I worked at Alta Ed and the middle school in Dana Gray. So Redwood's actually the only school I haven't worked at, so it's kind of cool that I'm now your gal. So I'm just very excited to, now that I'm not working at the schools, to still be a part of helping, make things move along and help us get to a better place.
And thank you again for joining, and welcome. So I've done a few things. today was the Dana Gray Awards, and we're talking about attendance again. One of the things that Mr. Kale spoke about is that 70 kids out of the 412 received perfect attendance today. So he didn't, and then they're doing a perfect attendance award and then a 95% attendance award. And he didn't give us the total for that second group, but there were quite a few of those papers floating around. So I just want to say good job to all the people. I know it takes a village on that one. You know, it's everybody from the teacher saying we miss you, to the people out front saying we're glad you're here, to everybody that's calling home. So thank you for that. It is, as everybody's seen, it is making a difference. We had an 8th grade promotion meeting. I somehow got talked into helping with Odyssey of the Mind at Dana Gray. And I have to tell you, I am reminded why I was a high school teacher, because there's some energy with 3rd and 5th graders in the same room. And then I went, as Jerry said, we were here Friday. So that's all I have. And so next is our student representative report.
So, as you all know, the first semester is winding down. So I think, at least at the high school, people are pretty eager to get into winter break, and finals are coming up next week. So there's quite a bit of stress, and but it's good. So some events that ASB has recently done at the high school. There have been ugly sweater days over the past couple of Wednesdays. So people have worn ugly sweaters of all different types, celebrating different holidays. Winter sports are currently in full swing. So you have basketball and wrestling. I know that they've had a couple of games. Additionally, ASB did a fundraiser for the victims of the Camp Fire and raised over $1,200. So that money is being sent to Paradise High School, the principal of Paradise High School, in the form of, I think it's Target gift cards, and then he's going to distribute them to families based on need. And then additionally, you guys were speaking about the gender and sexuality presentation, and so I think that some faculty at the school were inspired by that. So the Spectrum Club, which is a gender and sexuality alliance, so dedicated to LGBTQ issues, has recently been restarted and are doing different activities and stuff. And the advisors of that are Marshall Carr and Josh Brown. At the middle school, basketball season is underway, and the leadership is selling holiday grams at lunch, so that's a fun thing. At Dana Gray, the first trimester awards assembly was tonight, so I think some people went to that. There's a book fair tomorrow. There's a holiday sing-along on December 19th, and then the Mendocino Brass Quintet is performing a concert on December 20th. And then finally at Redwood, they are participating in the food drive for the food bank right now, and they are having breakfast with Santa. And that's all for student activities in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we have the superintendent's report.
So I'm going to jump right in. The chronic absenteeism, yes, we have new numbers, and hooray for Redwood, who had a decline in chronic absenteeism by 6.4%. So that was exciting. That's actually going to be at the end of my PowerPoint. In your board packet, you can see all the numbers. I made that separate. I wasn't sure if I was going to include it all together, but I did. So you can look at where we are as far as a district. We did decline in chronic absenteeism by 2.3% from 2016-17. We have a long way to go. The statewide average for chronic absenteeism is 11.1%. And so our district is still at 18, and the county is at 20.4. So it's something that we still need to address. I'll have more numbers for you when you see my PowerPoint. I did ask Sarah Bushnell to prepare a report, and Linda Stevens helped. Thank you, Linda. Just so you could see in that report where we are for the first 60 days of school compared to the first 60 days of school for the last 2 years. Why is 60 a great number? 60 is a great number because it's 1/3 of 180. So it gives us just a snapshot. Now, what's difficult here is that we need to remember that the first third of the year is usually much higher than the second third of the year. So I think, Linda, I think you are spot on. I think when we come back from January, we need to do another promotional, let's keep the attendance going and let's keep the attendance moving. So what you can see for our district from these numbers is you can see the percentages on how they compare for the last 3 years to where we are right now. So for Redwood, where we are right now, they're at about 96% of their attendance for the first 60 days of school. Last year at this time, they were at 95%. And 2 years ago at this time, they were at 98%. Dana Gray is at 96% right now. Compared to last year, they were at 95%, and 2 years ago, they were at 98%. I need to get some good bifocals. Okay, the middle school right now, they're at 95%. Last year at this time, they were at 96, and 2 years ago, they were at 98. So we need to look at that. But 95 is still good. It's better than 94. The high school is at 95% right now. This time last year, they were at 97, and 2 years previous, they were 98. What's different with the high school is that these numbers, I don't believe, incorporate Saturday school, and that's where the high school usually makes up a lot of their numbers. Shelter Cove is at 46% right now. Last year, they were at 54%, and 2 years prior, they were at 71. But what I want to say about Shelter Cove is that the attendance fluctuates pretty heavily. And 2 years ago, Gary, your numbers were much lower than they were right now. So that makes a big difference. And Gary's doing a great job. So good job, Mr. Lewis. Lighthouse, and remember that Lighthouse, Shelter Cove, and Noyo, they are our alternative ed sites. So that's why their numbers are much different in the district. And also they run credit on positive attendance. So it's a little bit different for them. So you can look at those numbers. As a district, we are at 94% right now. 95% last year at this time, and 94% 2 years ago. We usually are right around, I want to say annually, between 93 and 95%. It usually fluctuates right in there. So the trend is showing that we're sticking to our trend, to be quite honest with you. The chronic absenteeism is something that we want to look at, so I'm pleased to see that those numbers are improving. I'm going to move right into the California dashboard. So the dashboard is our new accountability model. It went live on December 6th, so I wanted to give you an idea of what it looks like. So if you go to our PowerPoint, you'll see it on both the screens, and make sure this is on. Yay, okay. So here we go. So if you Google California School Dashboard, you will be able to get to the site. You can look at the dashboard for any public school and any school that takes the CASP tests through California. So for those of you who look online and don't want to Google it, here's the address, CA for California, schooldashboard.org. It'll take you right there, and you can type in just a portion of a school name and it will show up. So we're going to start with Redwood. So Redwood, right now, their student population, they have an enrollment of 444 students. The socioeconomically disadvantaged population is right at 78.4%. English learners at Redwood is 36%. Redwood has the highest EL group, and that makes sense because they're coming in for the first time as kinders. Some are preschool, and then what happens is as our kiddos get older, they're reclassified because their English becomes so much better that they don't maintain as an English learner, they're reclassified. So that's why you'll see that Redwood's gonna have our largest EL population, and our foster youth at Redwood is right at 1%. So just a little math for you, it's 5 students, okay? Move the decimal over twice, it's 1%. Just a little math lesson for those of you out there. Okay, if you go to Redwood, what you will see is you will see this kind of an indicator. Last year, remember, it was the pies, so now it's the speedometers, okay?
Dashboard,
Yeah, dashboard, get it? Da-da-da. Okay, so the colors mean something. Blue is the best, then green, yellow, orange, and red. So we want to stay out of the red and as much as possible move towards the blue. Now, for the English learner, it says no performance color because the LPAC went live for the first time this last year. So you only get a speedometer reading, a dashboard, in an area where we have a comparison because the dashboard compares 1 year to the previous year. So if the LPAC scores just happened, there's nothing to compare it to, okay?
Would you mind explaining what that test is?
So the LPAC is our English language acquisition test that our kiddos take who don't have English as their first language. So if we have a student who comes over from China and they've never been in America and they don't speak much English, they will take the LPAC so that we can get a gauge of where they are with their English language development. And then every year, our goal is to take that kiddo and advance the kiddo forward in their English language development. So the majority of our EL learners are from Hispanic families, and so they take the LPAC, and then we base how they're performing each year. And the goal is that we have fewer and fewer English language learners because they're doing so much better that they're being reclassified. Okay, thank you. So let's look at Redwood. The first one is chronic absenteeism. So this is the dashboard that you'll see on the website. You can see the student groups that are in there and where they rank. Redwood declined in chronic absenteeism by 6.4% as compared to last year, so that's fantastic. Last year they were over 1 in 4 students chronically absent, and just so that everyone is aware, chronically absent means that you as a student, you are absent 10% or more of the school year. 10% is 18 days. Being absent 18 days over the months of August to June is an average of 2 a month, okay? And when you consider the numerous breaks that we have, 2 a month is quite costly. So I wanted to show you the comparison to the state. In the state, chronically absent is 9%. So the state got a yellow because they maintained. We received a yellow because the chronic absenteeism the previous year was at orange, and it improved up to yellow because we had a decline. So that's good. For their suspension rate, Redwood didn't suspend anyone last year, so they're at the blue. It's the best that you can do. Just so everybody knows, the state really limits what we can do with our kiddos below 3rd grade. So we're not really in a place where we can suspend. So Redwood did what they were supposed to do. So good job, Redwood. And then for the state, just so that everyone's clear, the state average for suspension for all students grades K through 12 is 3.5%. Meaning, if you look at the number of students in the state of California, 3.5% of them were suspended 1 or more times. It's the number of students, not the number of suspensions. Okay, so for Redwood, their English language learner progress. Now the LPAC stands for English Language Proficiency Assessments for California. So that's where LPAC comes from. You can see that they have 27% of their students are at level 4, which is well developed. 32% are at level 3, moderately developed. 26.1 are at level 2, somewhat developed, and 14% are at the beginning stage. So like I said earlier, this is the first time the LPAC was out. So next year we'll get a speedometer reading. If we maintain, then we'll stay at, we'll be right at yellow. These numbers are pretty average for us, so we're not in the danger of going into red. But if they increase without improvement, that's when we start looking at red. Okay, Dana Gray. Enrollment is a little different. 381, socioeconomically disadvantaged, 78.2%. Please remember that Redwood was at 78.4. So these two schools are closely in line with socioeconomically disadvantaged. And I want you to remember these numbers as we get up to the high school. Okay? English learners will decrease because we reclassify folks, 27.3%, and then 1% for foster youth. Now, Dana Gray's dashboard is going to have a few more speedometers because we now bring in math and our English scores, our English language arts scores, where we don't do that at Redwood because at Redwood we do not test lower than the 3rd grade. So Redwood are K1-2s, there's no testing there. Okay, so with Dana Gray, we look at our English language arts. They're at 20.6% below standard. I showed you all of our CASP scores at the previous meeting. So those of you who would like to see it, it's a lovely presentation. You can go back on YouTube and follow along, or go into the public documents of our board meeting and actually read through it. I think it's a 71-slide PowerPoint. I'm sure you'll find it stunning. So our English scores maintained at Dana Gray. They're 33 below standard in math. They declined by 5 points. And then for their ELs, they're actually doing quite okay with their ELs. We are making a concerted effort to focus on ELA and math in the district and really pushing our scores to be better. For chronic absenteeism, Dana Gray actually increased by 2%. So it's something that we're looking at. Mr. Kale and I were looking at data together, and Mr. Kale did a great job of looking at data and trying to pinpoint, okay, who are the kids that we're talking about? Who's the group? And I think he's making improvements this year. So when Redwood was at 26%, that was not last year, that was the year before. Okay, so that would be this year's current 4th grade. Okay, so we try and track students to see if there's something going on with a particular group. So in any case, I bring that up because Dana Gray increased, so we're trying to figure out what's going on and who we need to target and have robust discussions with. Again, I'm just comparing this to the whole state. The whole state's at 9%, so Dana Gray is double the state. It's something that we have to address. Suspension rate, their suspension rate declined by 6%. We are much more deliberate in our suspension practices. We are moving more towards a restorative model. I attended restorative practice training today. It was wonderful, some great ideas. Alted has been embracing restorative practices for the last 3 years. So we are moving towards a restorative model in the district. It's going to take us a few years to implement, but we're starting to make that push, so we should continue to see this. So their suspension rate was just fine. It moved into the green because they improved. The middle school has a population of 406 students. Okay, notice what's happening with our socioeconomically disadvantaged rate. It's coming down. Now, do families all of a sudden, as their kids get older, are they becoming more stable? Maybe. My concern is that families are not filling in the free and reduced lunch as consistently. So that concerns me. English learners, we have a significant drop here because a lot of kids are reclassified once they get through Dana Gray, and then our foster youth is a smaller amount. Okay, dashboard is very similar to Dana Gray with the middle school. No English learner progress because it's the first year of the LPAC. The English language arts for Fort Bragg Middle School, they increased by 4 points, so they're staying in the yellow. And they increased by almost 8 points for the math. And then their English learner progress actually looks pretty good. They only have 40 students, 40 EL students. Now we go into chronic absenteeism. They declined by 1.6%, so they stay in the yellow. Again, they're still significantly more than the state, but improvement nonetheless. Their suspension rate declined by 7.5%, so they went into the green. And this is the number of students who are suspended and not the number of suspensions, and comparing to the state. So they're under the state average, which is great. The high school, okay? So look what happens here at the high school. Our socioeconomically disadvantaged group drops by over 10% as compared to Redwood and Dana Gray, and also compared to the middle school, okay? Why is this of concern? Because if our families are truly better, if truly our family situations are not changing, then that's fabulous. My concern is if they're not changing and we're not getting our families to complete their free and reduced lunch form, that affects our supplemental and concentration money, okay? So it's something that we really need to look at and make a concerted effort to ask ourselves, are we getting all those applications back like we should, or is this a shaming factor for kids? I don't want to turn that in. But I find it curious that we have such a discrepancy between Redwood and the high school. So it's something that we need to look into more closely.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Is it one per family form they fill out, or is it each school they have a child that they fill a form out?
You can fill out one per family.
One per family.
The hard part is we don't have a whole lot of families that have kids in high school and kids at Redwood. So there are a few, and thank you for your ADA, but there aren't a whole bunch. So, okay, so at the high school, there was a significant decline in language arts, which was interesting. But the language arts at the high school is the only group that is above standards. Let me say that again. They are 5.6 points above the standards met, okay, above that goal. Every other school and every other subject was below. So yes, the high school took a little bit of a decline, but they're still above. And then what's funny is they increased in math. So it was interesting to us. We kind of all scratched our heads, huh? But they did well. And then you can see, again, another significant decline in our EL population.
Well, that was the second year the high schoolers took the math test online.
Yes.
They got used to being on the computer with math.
Well, and I have to commend the math department because they really made a concerted effort last year to do many of their assessments online so that the students were used to that platform. So, okay, moving on, college and career. So this is the first year that this went live. We had numbers last year, and we looked at those numbers last year, and they were in the upper 40s, which we were pleased about. This year, there was a decline of over 5%, and it's something that we're looking at because we believe that we didn't flag students the right way. So we've been diving into our data rigorously, trying to figure out what happened here because there shouldn't have been a decline. Mary's been working very closely with our CTE departments, and there should have been an improvement. So we're trying to find out what happened there because when we get to the district number, you'll see something and you'll think that it's kind of funny.
So can I ask, do you know how this is defined?
So college and career ready is, there's a matrix for it, and Mary could probably talk about this much more fluidly than I can. There are categories. So for instance, if a student completes a dual enrollment class and completes a CTE pathway, okay, successfully with a C or better in dual enrollment and completes a CTE pathway, that student goes into the prepared category. If a student completes their A to G requirements and a dual enrollment class, they move into the prepared category. If a student completes 2 dual enrollment classes,
Or also the CTE pathway and the A to G.
And the A to
There's
G.
like about 10.
There's a bunch of different ways they could do it.
Combinations of things that.
So if they,
that are prepared.
if they complete these things, if they complete an AP test with a 3 or better and their A to Gs, they move into the prepared. So there's a ton of different ways that kids can do this. And what I appreciate about the college and the career, it's not solely focused on A to G requirements. It really does look at a CTE pathway. It looks at a dual enrollment course. So there are lots of things and lots of ways for our young people to become prepared in the eyes of the state.
There
So
are
that,
also, if I can interrupt
Please.
real quick, with the CTE courses, more and more are becoming A to G.
Mhm.
And so the high school, Fort Bragg High School is moving toward getting our CTE courses A to G. That way, you finish a pathway that's A to G, you've completed that.
Mhm.
and we're really focused also on more dual enrollment, because if you could complete 2 dual enrollment classes, 2 or more semesters, then that's prepared. So the dual enrollment is something that is a win-win because students are creating and building their Mendocino College transcript. So it's not, are you going to college? It's, well, you're in college, so now what are you gonna do? So we're still looking into that. But 43 is not bad. It's a little bit higher than the state. But we're at
Seems
strange.
Strange though, with ninth
I
grade
know.
being
Well,
dual enrollment
exactly, because
for
we
all
kind of
students.
talked about, like, this is
Mhm.
going to be an easy one to fulfill, because we,
Right.
talked about the indicator, so it is a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Well, and let me tell you, when these numbers came out, the first thing I did was I called the high school. I called Sarah. I said, okay, everybody start digging. We did something wrong here. And so we've been looking into it, and I'll show you the district number in a minute to show you why we're still having a head scratcher about it. Okay, graduation rate is at 90.3%. Now, why does it say increased even though last year when I reported it was much higher? Because this is looking at the 4-year cohort, okay? So 4-year cohort are the kids who started as freshmen together. And you need to remember, if you are a student who does not get a diploma but is a certificate of completion, you don't count as a graduate. So my little guy is not going to get a high school diploma someday. He's at the middle school now. He's developmentally disabled, but he will not count as a graduate. So that's part of why this number looks so drastically different than what I've reported to you in years past. Because what we've looked at is we've looked at the kids who are eligible for a diploma, right? And then if they made it, and certificate of completions have counted as diplomas in the past. But for the state record keeping, they no longer do that. So that's why our numbers are shifted a little bit. We have a high percentage of SH kids and students on non-diploma track for no other reason than their IEP calls for it. So I'm okay with these numbers because when you look at the kids who are completing and who would be eligible in the past, our numbers are still in the 97s and 98s. So, but that's where that number is coming from. And this is the state average. So we're well above the state average. Okay, suspension rate. The suspension rate declined at Fort Bragg High School. Again, they're looking at more restorative alternatives. And then Noyo. Noyo has 15 enrolled, and this is more like the average daily attendance for them because their numbers fluctuate. I'm reporting on our alt ed right now because they have a dashboard starting this year, just so you know. So Noyo is labeled as a continuation school, which is why I put that up there. They have a different little set of circumstances. We look at their suspension rate. They're at 2.6% suspended last year, declined by 7%. And then I just brought up the all students from the state so you could see that. Lighthouse is our community day school. Their enrollment's been right around 22. Socioeconomically disadvantaged is right at 90%. English learners is at 27%, and they have no foster youth. Their suspension rate's a little bit higher, but it was declined from the previous year, which is a good thing for them. Okay, and then we have the district. There was no dashboard for Shelter Cove, just so you know. So Fort Bragg Unified, our dashboard looks like this. Okay, there's a lot more there. All of these blue things that say standard met, standard met, standard met, that happened over the course of many board meetings of me bringing you a report. And if you remember me saying, I need to do this, I need to report this to you so I can go into our dashboard and claim that we've done it. And then I attach the minutes and the date that it was approved by the board and when I did it. And that's why we can put all of those standards met there. As a district, our enrollment for the purposes of this dashboard was at 1,806 students. The average for socioeconomically disadvantaged is 72%. But again, you know, I'm concerned about this because Redwood and Dana Gray are right at 78. The middle school's at 71 and the high school is at 62. That has a direct correlation with our supplemental and concentration funding. So it's something that we need to look at. Okay, for English language arts as a district we declined by 4 points. For math, we maintained, we improved by 1.8 points, but the state calls that maintaining if it's not above 5. And then our English language learners, we have 313 students in the district who qualify as EL. For our college and career, now this, remember when I told you, remember this for the head scratcher? So what's interesting here is that for the district, it has 39.5% prepared, and it says that it maintained because we went up by 1%. But our number is so primarily focused on the high school, and Noyo and Lighthouse are a part of that, but their numbers are not as significant, their seniors are not as significant to fluctuate that number by 4%, because the high school is at 43%. So I'm still scratching my head about this one. I've got calls in to try and figure out what it is, because this number should closely match what the high school is, because the high school is in charge. The high school students are in charge of our college and career number. So, yeah, so I don't get it either, but we're gonna keep looking into that one. And this is the state. Okay.
Not too far off the state.
We're not, but you know, what's interesting, like I said, is that the high school is at 43. So why is there a 4% fluctuation between us, between the district as a whole and the high school? I don't, we'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay, chronic absenteeism for the district, we're right at 18.1%. We declined by 2.3% from last year, so that's good. We need to keep declining that chronic absenteeism rate. And then this is just to compare to the state. We're double. We are double the state average. So we need to look at this. Okay, graduation rate. This includes all of our seniors, 89.8%, and it's increased by 9%. We had more graduates from Noyo Lighthouse, which impacted this whole district number, so good job to our ALPED. And then this is the graduation rate for the state. Okay, suspension rate. It declined by 5% total for the district. So that was a big deal. And we do better than the state average there. So this is our dashboard for the district. We remain in differentiated assistance. Just so you know, I received the phone call from Michelle Hutchins. I'm hoping we continue to get some support from the county. We are in differentiated assistance for our foster youth and how they're performing, so that's something that we need to look at. So in some ways, we're a little bit better than we were last year, but it's still something we need to address.
Can you,
Yes.
sorry, can you explain differentiated assistance?
So differentiated assistance is when you have a subgroup in the red in more than one area, okay? So our foster homeless youth scored in the red in, I believe it was chronic absenteeism and then math and language arts. And so because they scored in the red in those two areas, then our district is in differentiated assistance to get to be more scrutinized by the state to tell us, hey, you need to look at those targeted populations and fix it. Last year we were in differentiated assistance because of our special ed population. Okay, so it's something we have to address. It's all about subgroup, and if your subgroups score in the red on your speedometers in 2 or more places, that triggers it. Okay.
And out of 1,000 districts, 374 are differentiated assistance. So just to kind of give you a where we're at
We're not
compared to
alone.
the state or the county.
Just one other question before you move on. For English, language arts, and mathematics, is there any concern with our scores, points?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
there's great concern.
I mean, I don't know, it says that we went below 22 and 62. I don't know out of how many.
No, so come to my office and I'll show you the presentation that I did at the last school board meeting that explains how the scores are calculated and how the mean is calculated and where those numbers come from. Like I said, it's a great 71 page PowerPoint. And I can show you exactly what that means. So there are 4 levels: exceed standards, meet standards, nearly meets, and doesn't meet, right? So at the meet standard, that's ground zero. So if you're 22 points below, then whatever that score is for each kid, the average was 22 points below that standards met. So that's what that means by above and below, okay? We have a lot of work to do. The good news is we're moving in a very positive direction, and I have faith in our teachers and our schools. So chronic absenteeism, these were the numbers that you had in that last report. And I added it in here just so that this could be online and a little bit easier to see. So Redwood declined, Dana Gray increased, Fort Bragg Middle School declined, the high school declined, and then Shelter Cove, Lighthouse, and Noyo, we have to work on their attendance. The district declined, and then I wanted to show you the statewide and the countywide so that you could see all of those. The high school's chronic absenteeism is no longer counted on their dashboard. And what's interesting to me is that most high schools in the state did horribly on chronic absenteeism. Our high school's the best in the district. So that no longer counts. And so both Mr. Triplett and Miss Alexander were really disappointed because attendance improved. So in any case, that's why you don't see it on their dashboard. It no longer counts for the high school. Chronic absenteeism is only for grades K-8. Where can you find this? Just again, Google California dashboard. DataQuest is the other place where I've received all the information for chronic absenteeism. Because the high school isn't reported, Shelter Cove, Noyo, and Lighthouse are not reported on the dashboard. You can find this information in DataQuest. All public schools have their information reported on DataQuest, and that takes us through it. Questions? Wow. Lots of stuff. Anyone in the public, if you ever have any questions on this and you would like to talk to me, please feel free to make an appointment. I'm happy to work with people and explain this a little bit more. It's a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I'll be heading out to the schools at some point to give everyone their little synopsis and Reader's Digest version. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, so 9.4 is the CSEA report.
So, good evening, everyone. My name is Danette Sawyer, and I am the union president for our school district. We held our monthly union meeting on December 11th, where we discussed a few items like the bargaining survey that was sent out via email to all classified employees. We also discussed the AB 1808 Summer Assistance Benefit Program for the 11-month classified employees. Several of our classified employees are interested in this program, but we need to go a little further into it. Just got some more information this evening from Holly. So CSEA donated $2,000 to the Paradise Union. And we also have several concerns regarding cafeteria and school bus employees and the potential of losing their jobs due to budget cuts. They're hearing a lot of rumors. So, try to assure them that it is. So, other than that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Danette. Okay, and do we have FBDTA?
Please.
Hi, I'm Alicia Capon, and I am the bargaining chair this year for FBDTA. And so, Becky, can I ask, is it okay if I read the Sunshine
Sure,
Letter?
go right
I
ahead.
thought Angie would be here. So we have a letter to Sunshine, our bargaining points this year, our articles. Per Article 25, the terms of the collective bargaining agreement, the Fort Bragg District Teachers Association hereby notifies the Fort Bragg Unified School District, FBUSD, of its intent to open the following articles for the 2019-20 school year as part of a successor agreement to the CBA. Article 6, payroll deductions and association dues. Article 11, class size. Article 14, peer assistance. Article 17, annual service. Article 18, units acceptable for salary credit. And Article 26, safety. We reserve the right to open other articles as necessary through the completion of the negotiations on the successor agreement. We look forward to meeting to set dates for negotiations as soon as possible. Sincerely, Angie Daniels, FBDTA President. And it's interesting to note, I think there were 3 articles that that Becky mentioned are being opened that are the same. So we're happy about that. And so this year, our negotiations team is Monica Lima for Redwood, and she's been doing it for years. I'll be on the team for Dana Gray. Kirsten Maurer is still the middle school representative. High school, help me out, Carrie.
Danny Aragway.
Yeah, Danny Ergwin. And Amy Hansen for special ed. And introducing Mr. Gary Lewis for alt ed. So we look forward to some successful meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to consent items. 10.1 are the, sorry, this is my first meeting. So we do these are what's the, non-controversial items that we approve as one item. So is there anything that we need to pull or anybody has concerns with? No? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So, see if I can remember this. So we get the motion, then Diana reads them. All right.
Make a motion, we approve the consent calendars as presented.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, Diana, can you read them for
Okay,
us?
so that is 10.1 warrants, approval of warrants dated December 2018, board minutes dated November 8th, 2018, November 13, 2018, November 15, 2018, special board meeting minutes December 4th, 2018, and the personnel action report. Approval of district employment.
Okay. No roll call? Okay, thank you. All right, we're good? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes, I
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Thank you. Are we good to keep going? Okay. All right, board action items. So the first one is 11.1, consider acceptance of audit. I believe that's Wendy.
She's hit her knee.
I forgot about the bar and I didn't want to keep banging my knee on it. We had a little bit of a challenge getting audit finished this year because we were waiting for an actuarial disclosure, so I do apologize for not getting that out to you until Monday. But I didn't get that until over the weekend when I sent it to the auditors, and they powered through and got it to us at least on Monday. So it's an unqualified audit, which is the highest positive thing that auditors give for audits. There were two findings from last year. One was using an incorrect form for the facilities inspections, and there were a couple of anomalies in our after-school attendance reporting. Both of those have been reported as corrected and implemented. The only thing they found this year, and it involved no dollars changes, there was a little bit of discrepancy between our facilities, our fit forms, and saying that the condition was moderate, and the SARCs saying that our condition was good. So I've assured them that we will have our administrators get together with our facilities personnel to make sure that those two things jive. But there are no costs associated with that, so there's no additional reporting, just I responded on the side on behalf of the district that we agree with the finding and that we will implement a plan to make sure that doesn't happen again. But there were no financial issues, there were no material misstatements, there were no internal control issues, and there were no adjustments.
I think, wasn't there an attendance for the ACES? And that didn't,
That was from the prior year.
that was the prior year?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was corrected. If you look at the bottom of that page,
Right.
it says implemented.
91, right, okay,
Yeah.
got it. I wasn't sure if that was a continuation.
No, no, no,
Okay,
no, no.
that was-
The auditors are required to report on the correction or not correction of prior findings. So that's a requirement for them to put that in
Because
there.
well, maybe it was 2 years ago, because I remember, the only thing that came up in the audit was a couple of offices didn't reconcile 20 cents. It was just minor stuff. So that's amazing, really.
Yeah.
So thank you to your business office again for doing such a wonderful job that we don't get those kind of audit letters.
I just want to say that we're not just whizzing through this much information, that the auditor is incredibly thorough, and we have Diana and I had a phone conversation, and they ask lots and lots of questions, and Wendy always passes with flying colors, so we feel pretty confident. We do a lot of background work. We're not just zipping through, rubber stamping the audit report, so.
And
a
they
lot that
come
goes on.
and visit 3 days in June, and then 3 days again in November, and torture all of the office staff. And then there's also an awful lot of, in between there, compiling of stuff that we scan and send to them. So they do look at a lot of things.
And it's pretty random, so it's not like they're looking through, you know, in the sense they're pulling pieces out to try to find some hiccups.
Right, so
And-
they're, you know, what auditors do is they're required to look at, they have a whole formulaic thing, and based on a risk assessment and the district's budget, they pick out any item that is over a certain dollar amount to look at specifically, and then they also have a formulaic way of determining how many items below that to look at, and those are chosen randomly.
And if you do have any interest in the written part of that, the document that Jerry showed is if you go to the end, there's the part that tells about how well we've done and those 3 things that they reported on at the end. So you can skip the bean counter jargon in the front, which I love, but I didn't read it all, but
We
anyway.
do have the final now, so we'll be posting that on the website under our,
Okay.
I don't know what section, wherever
Okay.
the queen of the website wants it.
So do we have a motion?
I move to approve I guess, consider acceptance of audit for 2017-18.
I'll second. Okay, any discussion?
Great
Okay.
job, Wendy, thank you.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Student Rep Judah,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, 11.2 is consider approval of the audit services with Christie White and Associates.
So this is the firm that has been doing our audit for the last 3 years. The professional standards suggest that an entity consider every 3 years changing if they feel a need to. There's no requirement to change. I personally feel like they're finally broken in. So we, you know, have a good working rapport as far as I'm understanding what they're asking and they're understanding what we're providing, and they have a better sense of who we are and how we do things. So it makes it a little easier on everybody not to have to relearn a whole new system. I feel like they've been very thorough. I think they've been very fair. When they have had findings, we've always, you know, discussed them, and, you know, they have no problem talking about a finding and explaining why they have to include it, and I usually understand that, and but being reasonable about it. So and they also offered to do this without any increase in the fee for the next 3 years, so it really delights me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I agree with the cost being fixed for 3 years is pretty amazing. And then probably after 3 years, it'd be nice to shake it up because it's always good to have a different perspective from a different auditor. But I think when our costs, fixed costs are increasing, it's nice to say, we can say this one's not increasing.
So it'll be 6 years total with this firm.
Do you need a motion?
We do.
I move that we approve the audit services with Christie White Associates.
Thank you, Mary.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Student Rep Judah,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
and Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. Okay, 11.3 is to consider approval of the first interim report and certification.
Okay, so you have the full packet. Again, we had a few glitches couple of pieces we didn't get from the county because they're still scrambling with the new financial system, so everybody's been doing a little scrambling. I would really like to give our business office here a shout out. Everybody has been just remarkable about doing whatever had to be done to get this done. And, you know, everybody sort of, what's the word, sympathetic, you know, grumbling occasionally, but the amount of work additional work that everybody took on to do this was just amazing. And so I really want to give everybody in our office a shout out for that. So the first few pages that you have are the certification and then the criteria and standards. And what those pages do is they ask a certain set of questions about whether or not you are meeting or not meeting certain criteria. And in the next little clump of pages are the direct questions and responses to why they may be a little out of whack or if they were met. But there's an awful lot of data in there that may or may not be interesting to anyone. Most of the places we did meet, most of the not mets happen because something has changed since the last budget. And that's what it's comparing to. So since we prepared the budget, something has changed. And why is it outside of an expected range of change? And sometimes it's because we got more money in a certain area, or sometimes it's because once we closed the book, we had more money to carry over to a certain area, so we increased an expense category by that much. So it can, you know, there wasn't anything in there that there wasn't a reasonable explanation for. So I put together this, I actually resurrected this PowerPoint from last year. I thought it might be helpful, especially for our new board members, to kind of see, it's a little more of a snapshot version of what's going on. So like I said, the first interim is a kind of a true up of where we are. It looks at the 18-19 budget with the numbers that are a little more solid from the state, because when we did the budget, the state hadn't adopted their budget yet, and there were a couple of changes. So this trues up with that. Our final balances are in here now, so we know really where we started and where we're projected to end. So a couple of things to consider when you're looking at these numbers. We are going to be certified as positive. Not by a whole lot, but we are getting through the third year with a positive balance, meeting all our obligations and maintaining our required 3% reserve. The reductions that you see in the two subsequent years, and that's in this sort of easier to look at, I think, version of the multi-year projections. You'll see certain things that are in there, and at this point, the 2 out years are placeholders. They're nothing that's been approved, done. They are assumptions, just assumptions. So looking at our system, the biggest pieces are funds, and there are areas of operation that have a self-balancing set of accounts with separate cash balances. Commingling between them is highly discouraged and to be avoided whenever possible, except when it's needed to. So for instance, when our Nutrition Services Fund needs more money, the general fund contributes to it. So that's an appropriate transfer between funds. But normally, you try not to have much of an activity between them. And then the next layer below that are our resources. And the resources identify which pot of money it comes from and the varying degrees of expectations as to how they're spent. And you can see our general fund has 2 different sections of that. Part of it is restricted, part of it is unrestricted. And you can see in the unrestricted side is our state LCFF, our mandated block grant, lottery money, and there are other things in there too. And then the restricted side has most of the federal money is in there, special ed money is in there, and most of our specific grants, our CTIG money is in there. Part of the lottery money for textbooks is in there because it's specified what you can use that for. At the moment, supplemental concentration is considered unrestricted, but it's really strongly advised that we do certain things with it, and we're supposed to do certain things with it. I wouldn't be surprised if down the road, because there are a lot of people in the state that are unhappy about how some districts are using their supplemental concentration money, that there will be a greater level of reporting and oversight over that, but it hasn't happened yet, so we can hope. So for our total revenues, and this is just talking about our general fund, not those smaller funds around, 82% of our revenue is from unrestricted resources, and 18% is from restricted resources. What's interesting is that our expenses are 31% restricted, where only 18% of our revenue is from restricted resources. So the general fund has to make up that difference. The unrestricted components, so that you can kind of see where those are. You've got your base grant is the largest piece, obviously, then the supplemental concentration. Transportation is at an amount that hasn't changed since 12-13. So that's something to squawk about to the state if you get a chance. The lottery money that we use largely for discretionary. Then the that sort of lighter blue pie, that 312,000, that's a one-time mandate reimbursement. Back in the early 2000s and maybe even before that, whenever the state said thou shalt do something, they generally said, and you can bill us for the cost of doing that. It was called a mandated cost, and we would apply to the state for reimbursement for some of those costs. In 5-6 through 12-13, the state didn't have enough money, and so they kind of threw out IOUs. They did keep track of how much money they owed the different districts for what they applied for, but they didn't pay it. So in 12-13, they came up with it they call the mandated block grant. And so based on your number of students, you get a chunk every year that's supposed to reimburse you for those things that the state says you have to do. And we have participated in the mandated block program. In the last few years, the state has been a little more flush, and in his conservative way, Jerry Brown decided not to throw that extra money into ongoing revenue for districts, but to pay off those old mandates. And it's been called one time for the last 5 or 6 years. But this is really the last one because now they believe that they have paid them all off. So that's not something we can sort of hope for next year, that there's going to be more of that unless somebody finds some that didn't get paid, but I'm not holding my breath.
Was that unrestricted, that money?
That is unrestricted, and it's keeping us afloat for the next 3 years. So this is a breakdown of our operating expenses. These are the big areas that we have. So you can see salaries and benefits in the restricted side, 72%, unrestricted side, 86%, so for a total of 81%. I'll get to that later. So that's for 18-19. Next year, that goes up more, and a lot of that is because of our PERS and STIRS costs, because if you look at this multi-year that I have, you can see that next year our certificated salaries actually go down a smidge, mostly because of the replacement of some retirees. It's not much of a drop, but it's not going up, but yet our benefit costs are going up, so the overall cost of salaries and benefits is going up. And then in 2021, it's 76 and 87% of salaries and benefits. And then salaries and benefits compared to revenues. This year it's 86%, next year it's 84%, and then 2021 it's 81%. And some of that is because the revenues are, in 2021, are going to increase a little bit. Next year they actually go down. And there was something else in there that I can't remember now, why that was that way.
Was it the
the reduction in staffing.
maybe. But that was mostly hitting next year, but maybe at the out year too, I think I had a little bit of that. So this is a oversimplified version of where we are for the 3 years, and you can see next year, our enrollment dropped this year by quite a bit, and what the state allows you to do is use the prior year numbers to kind of hold you harmless, because if we had had to take that hit this year, it would have been absolutely devastating. The thing is, you only get 1 year grace, so they figure, okay, now you got a year to plan. So next year, that's why our revenues are going to decrease next year. Some of it is because of that mandated block grant, or that one-time mandate not being included, and the other is because of our enrollment. And then it goes up again in 2021 because it's COLA applied to whatever we got the year before. And you can see the trend of certificated salaries, classified salaries, our employee benefits, and you can see that even though salaries go down, the benefits go up, and that's because of the PERS and STIRS. Materials and supplies, services and operating expenses, and the reason those are declining is not because we're funding salaries and benefits, you know, instead of everything else. It's because we're using up some one-time money that we had. Our CTIG money is going to be done. We're hoping to get more, but for now we don't know what that is. So we reduce the areas as we use up the one-time monies.
And can you just stay there for a second, just so that you know, this, for classified salaries, this includes the $15 an hour wage increase?
Yeah, I've got that. I've come in.
Oh, sorry.
Capital outlay, this is the last year that we're paying for the district-wide wireless, so that'll be all done. And then the smaller amounts in the out years are finishing up all the lighting retrofits. And supposedly we're saving more than that on our PG&E bill. These are transfers of direct costs between funds, and then so that you see our total operating expenses, and you can see, except for this year, they are more than the revenues. So you can see operating, we're going to have a little bit of a positive at the end of this year, and then we're in the hole in the 2 out years. And so we're going to get another letter from the county that says you've got to watch your deficit spending. And you can see the other thing they're going to mention is our ending general fund balance is going to drop by $1 million over the next 3 years. So that's a concern. We obviously can't maintain that, yeah, so we have to make some changes somewhere. So what's included in 18-19 that you're looking at is all of the PERS and STIRS increases. And in the wide version of this, in the assumptions and adjustments, I have put in how much of those increases is based strictly on the rate change. And it's a very interesting number when you look at it. It's not just the overall change, but I broke it down by how much is based just because of the rate change, and it's a lot. I've included moving a TOSA position that's at Redwood back into the classroom.
TOSA is teacher
on
special.
Special assignment, sorry. It includes confirmed retirements. It has adjusted our LCFF revenue for our enrollment, our change in enrollment. It does include our already negotiated classified schedules that go through 21-22, moving toward a minimum $15 an hour minimum wage. An expected 7.5% increase in health insurance costs. Our negotiated certificated salary schedules that are retroactive back to July 1, so that's all included in here that wasn't in the original budget. A phased-in reduction to nutrition services contribution, and elimination of our contribution to the after-school programs. So those are things that have already been included in this 18-19 first interim presentation. And also the elimination of the EL coordinator position district-wide. That's the English language coordinator position. So moving forward, some of the challenges we're going to have are these pension costs. You can see that certificated and classified, they're just keep increasing. The numbers on the right are our total statutory costs, so that's the things that we are required to do, which is PERS or STIRS, Social Security or Medicare, depending on whether it's certificated or classified, unemployment, workers' comp, those kinds of things that are required to be done. So for every dollar we spend in classified, we're going to have to spend another 34 cents to meet the statutory costs for that. The certificated looks like the STIRS part, they're saying may level out for 21, 22, but we won't know that for a while, but the anticipation is there for that. But that makes it very challenging. And you can see on the left there, by those years, PERS will have increased by 71% over the last 5 or 6 years, and STIRS will have increased by 52%. So it's tough, and there are a lot of districts struggling with this. So the other challenges we face is continuing to progress toward the $15 minimum wage. We've got it negotiated, we have it scheduled out, but it still needs to be funded. The health insurance costs are likely to increase at least 5% a year. We're probably looking at 7.5% next year and 5% in the 2 out years. Increasing special education costs, some of that is population increases. We're currently projected to contribute about $2.3 million beyond what's earned through ADA for those students, which is about 65% of the total projected cost. And then there's a potential for an additional 8% reduction from our county special ed money on top of the 8% hit we took this year.
And we just learned that Friday.
Yeah, so that's not in here, but that's going to be another challenge. I mean, we were already struggling with supporting it, and we're going to struggle some more. And then the continuing funding inequities, being funded on ADA rather than enrollment. It just doesn't make any sense that we have to have desks, books, teachers for 1,800 kids, but we only get funded for just over 1,700. That was last year. This year it's less. But it makes it hard to plan for things and to maintain programs. So moving forward, I think part of the reserve policy that you're going to be looking at talks about a budget advisory committee that the board may, so it's not something you have to do, but establish the structure of that, and I think you talked about that earlier, basically wanting to just do budget workshops, which is fine. Schedule a special meeting for after the governor's budget reveal on January 15th, so we can look at what we think it might mean to us. It might mean something completely different in May, but it's what we have to work with and how we have to put together our second interim. Provide direction to staff regarding options to include in second interim at that meeting. And then bring those recommendations to parent community groups for discussion and feedback as we prepare for the 1920 budget. So that's why there are a lot of special budget meetings on that schedule, because there's going to be a lot of work to do to get where we need to go. As I said, we are right at the moment have a positive certification, but we end up in year 3 with $112,000, which is really not much. So there are steps we're going to have to take unless there's some great windfall that we're not anticipating from the state.
And that budget does not include the recent surprise that we got on Friday about the reduction in SELPA.
Right.
So that literally was Friday, and Wendy and I.
Right, that was no time to put that in there.
About $30,000 left.
So, and SELPA is anticipating an additional decrease the following year out, an additional 8%. So we're looking at 85,000. So just so you know, SELPA gave us a reduction last year of about 134,000. That hurt. Then we received another reduction. So now this year we're looking at another reduction of about 85,000. And the following year they're talking about an additional 8% that year. So
And is that because they've gotten decreased money from the state for SELPA?
No, that's because our costs as a SELPA is a special education local plan area. Our costs in the county for special ed are going up. And so our contributions are going down. They've been spending the reserves. And if we don't make these types of reductions over the next couple of years, the reserves will be completely gone. So we have to, as a SELPA, make some kind of reduction. School Services came in and has been doing a fact-finding study on our SELPA to figure out why the issues exist as they do, because believe it or not, Mendocino County is the second highest funded SELPA in the state. Okay, why are we having such trouble? It's because of our geographical challenges. So where you have other SELPAs that have an occupational therapist that can travel from site to site, you can't have someone go from Leggett to Manchester and expect that that's going to be a day's work. That's just a day's drive to get there and back. You know, and then we have Whale Gulch. If you've ever been out to Whale Gulch, hoot of a place. But that's the difficulty, is that we are so, the expanse of our region doesn't really lend itself to the models of other SELPAs, which is you have a group of speech therapists that go out and visit the site and they're paid through SELPA. Well, we can't do that. You know, regional programs, our county wants to have regional programs. Well, does it make sense to have a regional program seated in Ukiah for us? We're really gonna put our kiddos on a bus, an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back? Of course not. So that's the part of the challenge with our SELPA, is that we present certain challenges. But right now, our special ed costs, there are certain things that are going to suffocate us as a district, and we need to be really clear and open and honest about them. Number one is special education. Number two is PERS and STIRS. Number three is our ADA. You know, and then there are other surprises that are going to be hitting us. So that's the concern right now, but we need to be very clear about that. We can't do anything about PERS and STIRS. They are going up, period. And we aren't getting more money to mitigate that expense. So the only way to mitigate expenses is to reduce in spending, right? Okay, special ed costs, we're losing funding on it. So the only way to mitigate that is to reduce expense. Our ADA, we lost 30 students from last year to this year. It's over $300,000. So I have to tell you, Wendy, I've been panicked. I don't know if Wendy's panicked. I think we talk every day and we put on a brave face and smile, and hope is not a great strategy for us. But I will tell you that I'm relying on hope right now on January 15th that we get something, but we need to be really clear. Half the state is burned down.
So did the meetings that we move still fall in line with that?
January
Okay,
15th.
because we got rid of February, right?
Right.
Okay.
The March one is more important, to be quite honest with you.
Okay.
Who oversees the SELPA fund?
Well, we have a series of people. So we have a director, who's Barbara Bloom, and then the superintendents make up the policy council. So we vote and pass things as they're presented to us. And last year, we did vote for a 10% reduction. You know, we had to. We could not continue the level of spending that we were doing, which is why we voted to approve a school services study, because we all had the question, how are we the second highest funded SELPA and we are sitting here in this mess? And why is it that Fort Bragg Unified is paying 65 cents on the dollar for every single one of our special education costs? So we are looking at that closely. The difficulty is IEPs are mandates. We don't get to say, no, you're not gonna do that. And we do a great job with special ed in Fort Bragg Unified. The last thing I was gonna say is I just don't like pitting program against program, and that's the hard part right now.
So in the essence of time, do we have any questions for Wendy, or anything we want to discuss specifically about the report? I'm just thinking about our evening. Sorry.
No.
And I personally, I mean, I went through the report and I have lots of things to that I want to ask questions about. However, we have a lot of things that are going to come down the pike that are going to change. So I kind of feel like this is really kind of, let's get it in.
Right.
And,
This is very preliminary, and like I said, it's
Yeah.
more of a true-up so that we know exactly where we started from unaudited actuals from the budget, because the budget, we didn't have everything closed. Now we do, so we have a better sense of what our revenues are probably going to be, and things are more stable. We've got our staffing more in place and everything else, and we're meeting what we have to meet.
So just one quick question. There's been a lot of discussion on reserves, but is reserves a part of this report at all, or is that a whole separate?
Well, there are reserves there, and we are required to maintain a 3% reserve, which we are doing. And that's about all we're doing.
There's
so far.
nothing else.
Okay.
And
any other
as
questions?
always, anybody can come talk to me anytime. I'm happy to sit down and go over anything anybody has a question about.
Any other questions for Wendy or Becky or anything from the audience? No? Okay. We have a motion to approve or disapprove.
I move to approve the first interim report and certification.
I second.
Okay, any discussion?
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Student Rep Judah,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
Yes. 11.4 is the consideration of the approval of board policy and administrative regulation 3100.
So this is the reserve policy. And I think the things that were, I tried to pick up from notes from last month, the things that the board wanted to see included. So the first green patch is the Budget Advisory Committee, that the board may appoint a Budget Advisory Committee. So that is at the discretion of the board, and it sounds like that's not something that we want to do right now. And then the next green patch is the Reserve for Economic Uncertainty, which talks about requiring the 3%, and then goes on to talk about the board required reserve. And the feeling of the board was that you wanted to limit that to 3%, an additional 3%. That the contribution for any year will be established by the board following the presentation of the first interim for that year and be included in the second interim report. And then I added this: in the event of unanticipated changes to the district's financial condition, the staff may request the board reconsider that amount anytime prior to the presentation of unaudited actuals. I felt that was important because we know how things can change between first interim and budget time, and they can change a lot, or they can even change for next year. So if we get to August and we're down another 20 kids or something, not that I'm, but I'm saying this year was kind of a kick in the gut when the enrollment came in down. It was like, how are we going to do this? I think that we need to have the option to amend it if we just have to,
So this kind of contradicts itself, because it says anytime it drops below the 3%, then we have to replace it within 2 years.
The
once
additional
it's
three.
reached, the additional
the
3%.
I know,
additional-
but I'm just saying, how do we get there? Until we get there and fully fund it, we're out of compliance with what we're saying.
But the caveat is until it's reached.
Right, once the 3% it reached, it can only be drawn down.
Okay.
Well, and it
And
also.
then in the event that it is drawn down, that it has to come back within 2 years.
So it's gonna be
A long time.
a long, long time before we reach
Right,
that.
because basically, the only thing it's saying is that we will be putting the 50% of the unassigned, unappropriated, unrestricted ending fund balance of the general fund unaudited actual until the 3% level is reached, which may be, very little. But it's a start, I mean, in the
It's a
sense.
start.
And I don't, that was the only thing that I didn't recognize that language and thought that you could even just say, in the event of unanticipated changes to the district's financial condition, the board may reconsider the amount at any time prior to the presentation. But I mean, obviously, if we wouldn't have extra money, we wouldn't be able to put any in. And that last line, you know, we're putting in 50% of whatever's left. So they kind of, I guess it's an extra foolproof, but I would just maybe put that the board can reconsider, because obviously the staff's giving us the reporting. So I just, the language staff in there,
It just says staff may request.
yeah, so I would line that out, because you're obviously giving that to us. It's a given that that's where we're getting the information, but that was just my, and then also I wanted to point out that this is unique too, because it says 80% of the board, so that would mean 4 out of the 5 would have to recommend reasons why to draw from that if we ever get the 3 extra. So that's important, and I think that's, I like that.
So at our workshop last Friday night, the gentleman that was giving the presentation was talking about other school districts and the reserves, and he was talking 6, 9, 12%. What are we doing wrong that all these other school districts have these gargantuan reserves?
We spend a lot of money on personnel.
Well,
We
I
have-
got my hand slapped because I asked a question, and they were telling us there were 3 things. One of them was competitive salaries, because they were talking about negotiating. They went down, shoot, now I can't.
They had a
How,
budget-
yeah, they had a
budget
crisis, and they
and
took a
their bargain, their teachers union actually voted to take an 8.5% cut, but they started from a very competitive wage. And we're
He didn't tell us
already
that till
below
after I
that.
stuck my
Right.
foot in my mouth and said, how did you do, I asked, kind of some details on their bargaining agreement, their contract, because I was not thinking that, and one of his things was he said that they were, so then not only do these districts have high reserves, but they also are paying their teachers, high too, so I don't know,
Were they basic
Little-
aid districts?
we didn't ask
He
that
didn't say.
specifically, yeah.
What was the district?
He didn't say the
didn't say
district,
that.
but
Mm.
it was a,
It's where he
Was it
worked, one of the places he worked,
yeah.
as far as when they took the involuntarily took the cut.
We have a lot of personnel.
So another
Well,
thing
he- yeah,
that
it was
popped into my
interesting.
mind was, is it because we have all these different sites and all these different food service, and all these different cafeterias? I mean, is it because they're more efficient?
There are many things, it's not just one. It is not just one thing, and that's the hard part for us, is that we can't just sit down and say, if we fix this one thing, it will be better. There are many things, and we have to, over this next couple of months, forgive me, but I am really gonna push the board to really ask you to dig deep and look at where our priorities are, because we have a $230,000 encroachment on the general fund for food services. We serve great food, there's no doubt about it. But that's staffing and food. That's how much we spend above the grant. So think about that. Does it mean that we should do the full 230? Wendy and I would be happy if we got that cut in half to 115. Okay, but these are some things that we need to consider. We've taken out the contribution to kudos. But we have some contract language in both of our bargaining units that we have to maintain. We have incredibly low class sizes. I challenge you to find the number of high schools and middle schools that have their cap at 30. I challenge you to find grades 4 and 5 who have their class sizes capped at 28. We're doing class size reduction with the rest of the state with 24 students, and our teachers work hard. So I'm not saying that I don't know what the answers are, but we have to come up with those priorities. We have a lot of specials, we have a lot of electives. We have to figure out which ones are the ones that we need to hold on to.
And
We need to, I know.
I'm sorry,
There's lots to
Yeah.
think about and lots of things for us to
and
do.
we're definitely gonna have to talk about it, but.
And we need to prioritize, so that's my speech.
So right now, we're just talking about the language for the policy. I do see now, I didn't see this earlier, but there is a numbering. Okay, got it. I just noticed
Oh, yeah,
it.
there is, sorry.
No,
my
it's,
forte.
Word thinks it's helping, but it's not, right? Happens all the time.
Can I ask a quick question? So I've kind of watched this conversation online. Thank you again for having it on YouTube. I just wanted to ask staff, does this policy stress you out? I know it's good to have it. Does it stress you out more? Is it make you kind of, is it a good goal to look at?
It's a good
how does it-
goal.
Okay.
It's a good goal, and we have to do something. I mean, the reason why we had a qualified budget was because we had no reserves to lean on. You know, and that was a couple of years ago, and rookie move, new superintendent, we're qualified, let's be honest, call a spade, and it, I don't wanna go there ever again.
And I think our district and many districts make it through the hard times without cutting staff or people, you know. Because, I mean, I know when I was an employee, that's how we made it, because the district had stockpiled all that. Well, now we have nothing in the reserve, and we're not gonna be able to do that. So I think it is a place for us to work towards, and hopefully we can do it sooner rather than later, because our facilities are.
It's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah, so, sorry I mentioned that, because, so does anybody have any concerns about the way it reads? Any other? I think it's a place to start. I mean, we may have to revisit this as budgets get better or worse. Because we did, I mean, I really want to put, I mean, it originally was a higher percentage, and I really think that should be the goal too, but I know that we want to be a little conservative, but I definitely think if we figure out the magic wand, and, you know, so we could put more away for the rainy day.
This is a place to start. We have no such policy at this time, so getting a policy is a place to start. It can, once the policy's in place, you can always modify it.
Right.
And I think I remember the board talking about a certain dollar amount, like 50,000 or 20. Is that a part of this policy? Like, or is
It
that
was part of the discussion,
Okay.
but we didn't want to use the,
actual number?
yeah,
Right.
because then it was, we felt it, correct me if I'm wrong, but that it wasn't flexible enough with what we knew was pending for our financial situation, right?
Because we could choose that to be a priority with this. You know, we could do
Yeah.
above. I mean, it's just, this is showing our limits. Like, we'll just do, if we only have, you know, $1,000 in the ending balance of an account, you know, we put
Right,
we
if
put
we
half
said
of that
50,
in.
then-
So it's just putting something in, but if we ended up saying, we get a, you know, I don't know, a gift of some sort, and we can say, let's, out of that, we can put 50 and everything else is maintained. We can always, because that language is pretty loose that way, if we could always put more.
Okay.
So I move to approve Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 3100 budget.
Second.
And any more discussion from the public? I didn't ask that on the last one, I apologize. Okay,
President Babcock,
yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Snyder,
Yes.
and Student Rep Judah.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to, is everybody okay with pushing through?
Yes.
And we'll take a little
Push,
break,
push.
okay. Sorry, I'm trying. I feel like a little grump on my first meeting, and I'm pushing. So, Wendy, you wanna?
Okay, so annually, we collect developer fees from anybody who builds residential, commercial, adding on. Based on the square foot, they pay school district a certain amount for the impact of having that extra square feet. This year, we actually collected quite a bit. It was up a bit. I think you can see in the trend in the report I gave you. It was up a bit. We have not increased our rates since, it's been at least 10 years, and I think more than that. And the reason behind that was because the community had passed 2 bond measures, and we didn't feel it was fair to then also hit them with increased developer fees. So that was a conscious decision on the part of the board that we not do that. But even so, the amount of activity last year was quite a bit more. We're required to report each year what we've done with it, how much we have left, and what we are planning to do with it. So that's what you have here. think I gave you the history too,
Right, so it looks like we're
a
leasing
10-year history of it.
some portables with the money.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Nothing too exciting, but
No.
important when that's your school site.
And this is anyone in the district who does any sort of new construction.
Yes.
I remember writing a check to the school district and not having any children, and thinking, wow, I better have some kids.
Right.
And thank you for that.
For both, writing the check and having two children.
In our schools.
Okay, so I move to approve the resolution 18-25,
I'll second.
accounting and development fees.
Okay, any discussion from the board? Public? I'm gonna say that we don't need to read this since it's very long.
I would agree with you.
Okay. So Anna,
Okay. Student Rep Judah,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Makala,
Yes.
and President Babcock.
yes. And then 11.6, the consider approval of the Noyo Food Forest Lease Addendum.
So we approved the Noyo Food Forest lease, and in that lease, under utilities, Noyo Food Forest was required, at its sole expense, to furnish utilities in their area. They were going to call PG&E and get their own meter and work with the city to get their own water meter. In investigating those two things, it was going to cost Noyo Food Forest around $31,000 to get those two utility kind of hubs installed, and that didn't make sense. 31,000 is an exorbitant amount. So Barry Silva looked at their water usage, their electric usage, what they're running and what they're pulling, and we determined that at about $250 a month, that would cover their water and electricity, and they were amenable to that. So I had met with Steve Lund and Emily Forrester, so we could sit down and talk about what this meant. This makes more sense for them to just pay us instead of paying $31,000 to try and install those the utility meters, so that they could be on their own.
And then they still have to pay for it anyway.
They're
so.
still gonna have to pay for it anyway, so it didn't make sense. So we came up with the agreement that this would be the addendum, so that we aren't funding Noyo Food Forest's water and utilities. They are self-sufficient. And this takes into account, the averages over the year, so we felt good about this.
Now, do they have a secondary water source? That can't, because isn't,
No, it's
no,
our,
that's all the water?
It's our water.
it's our water.
But it's it's not.
Part of it's well, part
Part
of
of
it's
it's well,
city.
part of the city.
Okay, that's what I
depends.
meant. So it wasn't, because I can't imagine their water bill from the city being that low.
No. No, it's a combination.
Gotcha, okay.
So my only observation, because I had Anna pull the lease for me, there's no review. I mean, obviously, utilities go up, we know that goes up, so we need to have something in here to say that we're gonna maybe annually assess the utilities.
Doesn't it say through the term of the lease on the
Because the
addendum?
lease is only, yeah, it says, this amendment is effective January 1, 2019, upon which payments will be made to the district due the first of each month and will continue through the term of the
2 years,
lease.
so that would be a 1
So
year.
then it'll be reviewed at the end of,
Okay,
and
'cause in
probably
20
included in the lease. This has
Well,
just
it'll be
been
kind of,
done.
they're giving them 2 years at that good rate, because I don't foresee
I
utilities
don't
going
think that's a
down.
problem.
Okay, you don't, because that's the only thing and we don't have natural gas in the area, which it also was said in here. Do they use propane? At
No,
this
that
site?
was a
Just a boilerplate?
catch-all
Yeah,
from the
okay,
attorneys.
yeah. They obviously live in Southern Cal. Okay. And was this prepared by us in-house, or was
The
this
addendum?
reviewed?
Yes.
Okay,
And I never got I haven't seen it.
the original lease,
No, the addendum.
It's, just scroll down.
11.6.
If you open 11.6, it's there.
It's just, there's just a gap, it goes 11.5 and then 12.1.
It's a blank for you.
Oh, are you
into
looking at the
go in-
whole
Go into the
document?
board, go into the board. Oh,
The
okay,
folder.
okay.
Yeah,
Can
I'll
you
just-
reshare with him the board?
I think I didn't have access to the folder because I.
Because you weren't voted in yet.
Right.
Yeah. Give you access to the phone, right?
Sorry, Scott.
No, no worries.
It's gonna be so much better next month. Just wait.
You're
Much
adding them
smoother.
too, right, Anna?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here, did you wanna look at it?
I was peeking over there.
Okay, we'll give you guys a minute to.
Okay, and we'll send you an invitation now, but you will have to sign in with your FBUSD email account. But it is done.
Scott, are you okay with?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and Mary? You okay with, okay. Yep. All right, so if we don't have any other discussion, board, public, okay.
Make a motion, we approve item number 11.6, Noyo Food Forest Lease Addendum.
I second.
Okay, any discussion again?
President Babcock,
Yes.
Trustee Makela,
Yes.
Trustee Mattson,
Yes.
Trustee Paoli,
Yes.
Trustee Schneider,
Yes.
and Student Rep Judah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm used to looking at Jennifer waiting for her to call, but it's me now. I'm sorry. Okay. 12.1 is a request from quotation, and this is Becky.
So this is really more of Wendy, so I'm going to
Okay.
defer this,
Okay.
but
So, we've been talking a lot lately about things that need to be done around the district, and wouldn't it be nice if, and wouldn't it be nice if, and, and so what since the modernization, we haven't done a facility master plan. And so we originally talked about going out for bids on a facility master plan to get a sense of where we are and plan for the future. The difficulty with the facility master plan is it's very large and very grandiose and very expensive and much more information than we need, really. Because we're not looking at increased enrollment, we're not looking at, trying to develop new sites and that sort of thing. So what we really needed is a needs assessment. And so that's a little smaller in scope, a little less expensive to get done, and it will help us prioritize, cost out, and figure out how to pay for the things that need to be done. So we're going to send out this RFP, and other people who know a lot more than we do about this suggested that we go this route with a needs assessment and an implementation plan rather than a full-blown facility master plan. The timing on this is still a little way out. It probably won't be completed until May, because they're going to come out and assess our sites, assess the condition of them, look at things that need to be done, and help us prioritize what should be done. So we'll be sending this out next week. We'll get the responses back and back and forth through the end of January, when we'll decide on who we'll select to do it, and we have 4 months to actually do the plan. So sometime in May or June, we'll have a needs assessment and can start seriously looking at some of the things, because there have been some grants that have come through the state that we may have qualified for, but they require a match, and while we have a little bit in our capital improvement fund, we weren't ready. And in order to go after some of this money, you have to be ready. You have to have a plan. You have to say, this is what we want to do. And we're nowhere near that. We can say, we'd like to da-da-da-da, but that's not enough for them. You have to have a more specific idea. And so this will give us that list of things that we can prioritize and figure out how to pay for.
So are you going to send it, we're going to get responses from somebody like Quattrochi? I mean, there's a
Yeah,
kind of company that
they're
we
on the
work
list. Schoolworks is on the list. I've got a list of about half a dozen places that have done work in the Northern California area that we'll be sending out. So it might even be more than that. It might be 8 or 9 of them, but we'll be sending them out starting tomorrow and Monday. And the funding for that is we have been continuing to receive, since redevelopment agencies went away, there's something called the Redevelopment Successor Agency. And as long as an entity like the city has activity in what used to be their redevelopment fund agency, the successor agency still has this activity, and so we still benefit some from that. So we get a little bit of money into that fund every year, and it's restricted for capital projects. It did help us pay for the end of the modernization a little bit, but now that's all done, so we know that that's available to use. So between that and what other state allocations might be available to us, this plan will help us find that out too, what we qualify for. So those funds will be paying for this, so they're not coming out of our general fund.
And there's enough in there?
To pay for this? Oh, absolutely,
Great.
yes.
So, it'll review all the sites, even though the high school's kind
Yes.
of been
Yes.
facelifted.
Mhm.
It'll take, I guess, take that into consideration, because I know all of them probably need some heating, help.
Oh, you've heard.
I see the PG&E bills. It's crazy. And so my concern was the cost, and I know it's coming out of that capital improvement fund. And is there a policy that, and this triggers because I'm thinking of 700 form. A lot of us, since especially we have new board members, we don't know what MOU or contracts we have out. So like this, we'd want to know who the folks are to see if anyone has a conflict. So that's like, I'm thinking ahead, not just for this one, but that's why I think we've asked in the past for contracts to make sure that none of us have a conflict.
Well, so once we get the proposals back,
Mhm.
we'll go that step.
Right, so, and that also leads me to a question, do we have a policy where it has, this is discussion, and we're saying, I guess we'll give you our blessing that we agree with this, if we agree. But I was wondering if there's a policy that says it has to come to us as action if there's a dollar amount, like if it's something over X amount, and is that something we
If
need?
it's over X amount, it has to go through a full bid process.
Okay.
I mean, for this purpose, because it's less than $20,000.
Right.
It's going to be. a
The
vote.
cost of the report, okay.
Yeah, so for that level, we don't have to go through the full formal bid process, you know,
Okay.
with opening sealed envelopes and all of that. We'll look at the proposals, we'll see who best met the things we're asking for as far as presenting their proposal, ask for references, check with references and that sort of thing, and, you know, find the best match for us.
So it's kind of twofold, so we're using it as a tool to say maybe, okay, now we can try to apply for this grant, or are we going towards a bond? Like, what is the purpose of this?
I think that will
Twofold?
depend on the priority list and
Okay.
what the costs are.
Okay.
If that's the direction the board
Because-
decides that we have to do this large thing, that would probably be our only option, but that's
Way
down the
ahead,
road.
but
Yeah.
so it's really three-tier, really, because if we have money, I don't know what we have in that fund, capital, or the capital improvement fund, but we could maybe do 2 of the high points right out of that fund. Like, we could choose to, or not
Probably
really, probably not, okay, so we have no money left. Okay.
There's
I mean,
money in there, but
There's money
it,
in there, but
but
it's
not
not
to do
enough to
anything.
do anything substantial.
Okay,
And was the
Except find out
RFQ included in the packet? No, so I'm not.
No,
No.
I've
Okay.
got it here, if
Information.
anybody wants to take a look at it, it's almost finished, there are a couple little things I still wanna, tweak the dates. I also wanna talk to Barry tomorrow about, you know, do we actually need hard copies, or is it okay if they PDF it,
Right.
you know, that sort of thing,
Okay.
just,
And would the
fine
board,
tuning it. And we did borrow this from some other district too, and then change it to meet our needs. So we didn't have to recreate the wheel on it.
and is this a contract that would come back to us to approve, or not?
It would be like a bid opening, basically, of who's gonna be the.
Kind
lead,
of,
so-
yeah.
so
We'll
yes.
come back with a recommendation about who to, you know, we'll
Who to hire.
review them all, we'll interview them if we feel we need to, and then we'll come back with a recommendation to the board.
Okay, and then we can know if there's any conflicts or.
right.
Right, at that point.
Sounds good.
I wouldn't mind when that goes out, can you email it to us?
Yeah.
Sure.
I just wanna look at what information we're gonna get, not 'cause I.
Mm-hmm.
could all of you just make sure your microphones are close to you? I'm seeing that we've got some people who may not be hearing, so Jerry, you might want to move yours closer to you.
Okay. Any more questions or for Wendy about that? Okay. Public? 12.2, the FBDTA Sunshine Letter, which I'm a little confused now that was
So-
read.
So how it goes is that they sunshined theirs with us, and then we sunshine ours with them. So you have to approve on what we are going to negotiate. I can't just say, hey, FBDTA, let's negotiate, okay? You as a board, I
So
have
they
to-
didn't have to present that tonight.
No, they didn't,
Okay.
but
That's what threw
there
me.
still needs to be sunshine for public disclosure before we can bargain so that they can, the public can provide input on both sides of it. So ours does have to be sunshine. This will come to a vote at the January board meeting of whether you approve or not approve. the contract year next year for 1920, the whole contract is open. So after speaking with the administrators and reviewing the contract language, these were the 5 things that we wanted to discuss. And it's 3 of the same things that FBDTA wanted to discuss. So it's just information, that's it. And FBDTA has a signed version of that letter. And then the CSEA openers, I'm not ready for it yet. I haven't had a chance to go through the contract with the specificity that I was looking for, and I need to ask Linda Stevens a few history questions. So we're gonna hold off on 12.3, and I will bring you a letter in January. It'll sunshine for 30 days. We don't plan on negotiating with CSEA probably till late February, March anyway, so I wasn't worried about that.
Into our meeting dates fall 30 days.
Yes,
that we just-
now they
okay.
do, now they do.
But I know that we changed specifically for the FBDTA, but will that be okay from the January to February one?
Well, it'll be January, and then we'll do it in March. We'll approve it at the March 7th meeting,
Okay.
so
Not
it'll be
February.
fine.
Okay, any questions, concerns? Okay. Moving on to other, we have advanced planning and suggestions for the board meeting. And it might be with time and just calendar looking, should we just try? We would like to meet in January to do a board retreat. Should we just go with Doodle Pool or do it that way
Do
instead
you
of?
have any potential dates? I mean, just for kicks? Just throw out one date to see if it's amazing.
Do you want it on a weekday? Do you want it on a weekend?
I would say a weekday, but
Yeah, weekday's good.
My Thursdays are open.
What about,
My Thursdays in January are open too.
what about January 24th? Did we have that down for anything?
there
that
is,
just gonna
that is
look?
a special, I think that's something because
Yeah, I didn't print that out because it's
Yeah.
on.
Or
there.
we could go to January 10th.
that's the special meeting in January.
Okay, what about January 10th? That was our original board meeting date anyway.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be out of town.
Oh, okay.
That's the out-of-towner. Okay. One more and then we'll do a doodle.
What about Tuesday, January 15th?
Looks amazing.
Yeah.
It's a Dana Gray Parents Club meeting, but I've missed several Parents Club meetings because of our special meetings, so not that, but we're trying to be better at getting to these things. Not a big.
Well, if you make make them 4 a year, that's good.
What about Wednesday, January 16th?
I'm-
That is supposed to be the parent night for the social
Yeah,
media.
that's not gonna be a good day.
We gotta move the promotion meeting.
What
on
about
that.
Tuesday, January 22nd, right after Martin Luther King holiday?
Like a 6 o'clock time, or what are we thinking?
We could do a 5 o'clock time, because this is your workshop, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we can start earlier if you want.
Yeah.
If we want to start at 5:30 or 5:15 or.
Can we, just because of work, that's when we start opening, we're there till 7. So can we go back to the 15th? I'll just miss the parent club meeting.
15th would be,
We're still open at.
I
or
like
we
that
close at
idea.
5. Okay. We close at 5 on that.
Okay.
So you wanna do a 5 o'clock on the 15th? Did you say?
You say 15th or 16th?
15th. 15th.
1-5?
1-5.
Is that good?
At
What time?
5 o'clock?
Sure. Well, please go.
Okay, I've got January 15th at 5 PM. Yes?
Here
Yeah.
or over at
Yes.
the
Oh, that's a great question. It could be in, well,
conference room over there?
we could do that. Do you want it to be in here, or do you,
If this room is, does this room normally look like this?
it'll look like this on the 15th, because they're not tearing down.
Well, but I'm just thinking, I would, it's nicer when we sit, we're like at a square table so that we're, yes, instead of, so I don't
We
wanna
could-
rearrange this whole room.
Oh, I got you.
Well, we could be,
We could go
be
to a
in-
conference
we could
room,
be in my office.
as long as it's posted.
Yeah, we can be in my office.
Yeah. And,
Okay. The,
the last couple times we've done it, there has not been a large crowd, so, even though it's an open meeting. Okay, so January 15th at 5 o'clock at the,
DO.
DO, yeah.
And this is called a,
Board work, it's your
Board
retreat.
workshop,
It's your
board
workshop.
retreat.
okay.
board discussion and evaluation. There's no retreat. I thought there was gonna be a party.
Yeah.
No balloons. It's all
No
serious.
spa day.
Okay, well,
No.
that was quick. Thank you,
And you
Diana.
might want to, by mid-year evaluation, you might want to,
Can we do that at that? Or does that have to
We're
be?
not gonna have time.
Mm-mm.
oh, okay.
Because
Yeah, that's gotta be closed.
but yes, that needs, I'll work with Anna on getting that on we've got to get that going.
Okay, that's to be.
And Anna, you'll send us all these dates for all these.
You'll get Google Calendar
Yeah.
invites and they'll go
Awesome.
right into your
Yeah.
calendar.
This one's already just been.
Oh,
sent.
look at that. There it is.
Okay, so we have 13.2 housekeeping reminders and announcements. And I wanted to see, I don't need to read those, but I wanted to see if we could possibly make sure that one board member goes to each event in the district. So that leaves us with the Tuesday, the Three Rivers board meeting. And then Tuesday, January 8th, there's a middle school site council and a Dana Gray ELAC meeting that evening. Does anybody know for sure that they might be able to attend those so we could?
Middle school's me, and I have it on my calendar already, so I'm gonna try to make the middle school side
Okay.
on the 8th.
I've been going to the Three Rivers board meetings.
But we want you
I
to
know.
reduce your load.
I can attend that if that helps.
Okay, that'd be great. And we'll work on this kind of when
Did
we
we
have the
add up?
retreat, but.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Scott.
And that, I'm hoping, Becky, I know you want to go because you want to keep the pulse, but I also, it would give you a chance to go home a little bit earlier if you wanted to, so.
Always an exciting thought.
And anybody available for the ELAC meeting on the 8th at 5:30? I'm out of town or else I would volunteer.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Okay. All right, thank you. I just would like to make sure that, and of course, more of us can go. It's just if we could make sure so there's someone there, I would
And
appreciate that.
it's very rare, but if 3 of us were to show up, we just can't talk business, so
Right.
just for the newbies.
Well, I listened, we had.
Oh, yeah, you already did
Guy
that. You've
told us
already
on
been there, done
Friday
that.
he was-
And we have, I think the 3 of us went to a
Totally.
middle school meeting. We just,
And say, we're parents,
yeah, and
different hat.
we just don't contribute. Okay,
You don't know where this DLAC meeting takes place? do
It's
you?
at the Dana Gray Library.
DLAC, I mean, okay. the
Oh,
link
it's
here.
at their, it might be in their conference room.
And
Email
where
us
is
right now.
that? I
Okay.
s-
It's
heard that was-
across from the office. It's right next door to the staff lounge.
Oh,
The old
Okay, I saw
computer
that,
room, or
yeah.
the old,
It's where the book fair is being held right now.
yes.
Okay.
I was open, okay.
It was the old care class.
Oh, I know where that is.
Okay, so do we have any public participation on closed agenda items?
Can I go back?
Oh,
really
yes,
quick?
sorry.
Just, there was the training on January 3rd and 4th. Were we gonna
Oh, yes.
talk about that?
Thank you.
I sent you that.
Yes,
Okay.
you did, and it's here too. Or no, this is the MIG training, right?
And if there's no budget, that's fine. I just,
So I think the way, we had passed a board policy that we were going to approve budgets as a group, which we can work on next month, but unless anybody has a real, sorry.
Issue.
Thank
Gotcha.
you. I think because this is time sensitive and both of you want to go, I think, you guys go to the board training, your new members, and then we'll go from there as far as what kind of budget we want to put in for,
And how
Board
does all
training.
this impact our general fund? That's when I hear all that, I'm like,
Well, there
I don't need
is
to go.
some board conference budget in there now, and it's, it's much better when CSBA is in San Francisco than in San Diego. So there's always something set aside for that, and honestly, I think it would be really, really important for you guys to do that.
Yeah.
I think it's,
Well, and this is the one that's for the first, like your first 100 days or something, the first.
it's in
Yeah.
Sacramento.
It's in Sacramento.
So that one is, because I did that
Yeah.
my first year, and I think it was helpful
Yeah.
to get you going on some
so,
basic
I
terminology.
would probably get together with Anna to make arrangements for a hotel,
I will stay with my cousin.
and then,
Awesome.
okay.
look at Mary being so,
And hopefully January 1st, we're rolling out our new travel reimbursement form. It'll be available online. So
Okay.
Good
anything
stuff.
else for there is, go through that.
So Anna, with the MIG training, so that might be a discussion for us
That
January
was my
15th, but
next
is that
question.
too close to book? Like if we waited to the 15th to say, are we doing this? Who's
That's
going?
this one.
That's the actual
That's
MIG.
the,
Masters in
yeah, the
Governance
masters in
training.
I would
government.
say that with the MIG training, if that's something that you're considering, we should hold a hotel, because we can always cancel.
Okay.
And then, that's the most difficult part of any of the trainings is getting the hotel accommodations. Getting in registered
Although
is
this is in
simple.
Eureka, I think there's probably
And I
gonna be a
even
lot of rooms
changed
at
my,
Red
Oh,
Line.
are you?
My
Okay.
date for,
Eureka's got plenty.
Yeah.
yeah.
So just to find out what the priority, if we just invest in 2 people going on the MIG a year, I mean, is that, reasonable?
I think
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I also need to know how to pay, we're paying for it.
Is this for all 5?
No,
I was gonna say.
Jerry and I have,
No,
So,
I mean,
and
is this
maybe-
for all 5 courses?
Right.
oh, no,
It's-
that's it's super expensive.
I
have
know,
to say.
okay.
Well, it's
So, and-
$2.99 per
Yeah.
course, so I'm
Right.
thinking, is that per day or see if there's 5 times 300.
So maybe before the 15th, we can figure out a budget, what it would cost to send 1, 2, or 3.
We can look at that.
And we're already, like, you 2 are already graduates.
Yes.
So we'll just have to have that discussion, and maybe
Yeah.
we'll have enough time on the 15th to figure out what the priority is.
I think it's definitely an item we'll put on the,
I will give you a little sheet of estimated costs
Okay.
per person, and obviously things fluctuate depending on who's going and who can accommodate
Room.
together.
right. Okay, great. So you guys will work together with Anna to get,
I will make
Registered and-
those reservations
In
tomorrow,
January.
at least for the course, and then we
Awesome.
can do the accommodation.
okay,
Thank you.
all right. Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So, there's no public here, so I don't think there's gonna be any public participation on the closed agenda.
We need to cut the cameras now.
Well, I have to officially adjourn, right,
Yes.
to a closed session? So at 8:52, I don't know if I need to say that,
Or do you
we
have to-
are going to.
I move to adjourn.
Well, I don't think we moved to adjourn.
You move,
We just
Adjourn to closed
moved to
session.
close, do you have to
Adjourn.
motion that?
you move to adjourn to closed
Okay.
session.
Moved, or are you reading the next page? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn to closed session?
I move,
After a brief break.
Yes.
oh, after a brief break, I move we adjourn to closed session.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, in again.
Is there a vote? All in
Yes,
favor?
yes.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Look at the clock, Vicki. Repeat it by 8 minutes.
I told you we were gonna make it.
Good luck.
Okay, now
Thank you, gentlemen, in the back. Are the mics off?